enabled, future-ready, open, distance, and digital education. This platform some of the most eminent and distinguished leaders from academia, industry, and government bodies to deliberate on the transformative role of artificial intelligence in open, distance, and digital education. I invite Professor Uma Kant, Vice Chancellor of Indira Gandhi National Open University, for her and opening remarks. I set the context for this important conclave. Distinguished speakers, dignitaries, eminent scholars, policymakers, leaders from the industry and technology, from academia, dear learners, ladies and gentlemen. A very good evening to all to this pre-summit event for AI Impact Summit 2026. The theme of this event is AI ready open distance and digital education, ODDE. I think we have moved from ODL to open distance learning. And perhaps also we need to also think of when we talk about AI, how we can take it a step further, talking about use of AI and moving towards agenting a university framework. That's the future, I think, and we need to seriously think about it. So it gives me a great pleasure on National Open University to warmly welcome you to this. Today, us an not deliberate on the future of education, but also to reflect on IGNOU's transformative journey, open and distance learning, to a digital, now towards Agent Tech University. IGNOU was established with a single purpose to democratize higher education to those who were left outside the formal system. We are the largest university in the world with on the rolls. So you can understand the scale at which we operate. And we are quite inclusive also and trying to reach the last mile. And that's the main motto of taking the doorstep of the learners. From its very inception, IGNOU challenged the conventional idea of a university as a physical space and positioned it as an institution, access, equity, flexibility, and quality. Through open and distance learning, IGNOU enabled millions of learners to pursue higher education without abandoning their life responsibilities. This ODL model was strategic innovation rooted in academic rigor, learner-centric design, and national development priorities. As technology reshaped society, IGNOU recognized early that digital transformation and that public universities must lead this change responsibly. Over the years, IGNOU built one of the largest digital and ecosystem in the global south, enabling learning anytime, anywhere. The COVID-19 pandemic accelerated this journey, and IGNOU ensured academic continuity through online learning, virtual counseling, and digital assessment. We stand at the threshold of the next transformation towards an agentic university driven by artificial intelligence. As agenting university uses AI-enabled agent to support learners, faculty, administrators, and governance system, enhancing human agency at a scale. At IGNOU, this vision is firmly grounded in ethics, equity, inclusion, and transparency. This journey aligns with Education Policy 2020, Digital India, and Viksit Bharat 2047. With its scale and public mandate, IGNOU is uniquely positioned to serve as a global reference model for AI-enabled open and digital education. I once again warmly welcome you all and look forward to meaningful deliberations and collaborative outcomes from this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I request you to invite Professor Ganesan Kannabiran, Director, NAC, to the dais. Professor Kannabiran is a academic leader and administrator, widely recognized for his contributions to quality assurance, accreditation, and excellence in higher education. I request Professor Uma Kanjilal to kindly felicitate, sir. Thank you, madam. Now I invite Professor Ganesan Kannabiran, Director, NAC, to address the gathering on the topic, Quality Aspects of AI-Enabled Open Distance and Digital Education. Thank you.
Good evening to all of you. I think I have about 10 minutes to talk. Any of you academics must have participated in accreditation. How many of you have participated in accreditation process? Any of you? Okay, there are very few. So it's good for me. So what I'm going to do is, we recently did a research project by British Council. My friends are there. And I would like to share a few slides and talk about the concerns and quality of open and distance learning. And I also wanted to share, which involves how you can use AI. So this data that we picked up from the UGC, which is, I think, 24-25, which means January 25 admission, up to admission. So we can see that the traditional open distance learning numbers are reducing, as you can see over the 3 years, whereas the online education is increasing. Of course, IGNOU is showing a slightly different trend, the national trend. So the point is that online is going to be the, kind of, I just put a few bullet points. We are talking about the increase in GER from 28% to 50%. And we also have a challenge of close to 40% of the graduates are not employable. As we increase the GER in the current level, and also when the large youth population coming into higher education, the number is going to increase. And if you are not able to provide employment opportunities, this increased GR will be a challenge than an opportunity. Therefore, you need to look at why this particular trend of increasing GR will not help the country. The second is, of course, we are looking at the increasing trend of need, particularly the Gen Alpha learners, and online education will pick up in a big way. Oil is a question mark, both, in certain cases, trying to say that the open distance learning, the traditional open distance learning is still the choice, but we are also seeing a trend that online, upcoming trend. We are looking at opportunities for reskilling, upskilling, and cross-skilling of employees already in the job market, and how can online education, be of value to them. Even today, not many universities are offering in science, engineering, in a distance mode as well as online mode. They are not offering now. I mean, unlike other countries like UK, they are even offering medical related education through online. But we are not allowing engineering education through online, except BITS, Pilani and few others. We're also looking at global mobility of our people going to different countries. They want to continue the possibility. And for us also to offer programs to learners in other countries. So we did study that. I put few bullet points for you to look at. Curriculum is one of the major issues. The first one is industry alignment. When the students are not getting jobs, it is basically because the curriculum is not aligned with industry. And what we teach is when the industry is looking at those students. Outcome-based education, NEP alignment, faculty preparedness for developing good curriculum. These are the challenges. And developing course content, whether it is traditional, material-based content or the online content. The challenge is diverse learners and inclusivity. And multilingual and regional content. Faculty shortage and training. And technology integration. These are some challenges in content development. Teaching learning, the very important aspect of the whole, online education, the learner engagement and motivation. This is about how to hold on to the learners. I mean, they should get excited to the next lesson, next chapter of learning, but somehow they keep dropping, course. And faculty preparedness and digital pedagogy, limited interaction and communication, assessment and feedback mechanism, and so on, are the challenges in teaching and learning. Assessment and evaluation, ensuring academic integrity, plagiarism, lack of robust online exam tools, difficulty in assessing practice are some of the challenges. The technology platforms and providing access to learners, digital divide and internet connectivity, device access and user experience, platform usability, and then technical glitches and downtime, availability of, there are low literacy, digital literacy also is one of the reasons for, the challenges. Student limited face-to-face interaction, and the number of counselors per student, say 100 students or 1,000 students, there is no proportional number of counselors of the systems. And low awareness and help seeking. Students are not really asking for help. That is a challenge. Why are students dropping from the programs? The first is work-family commitments, lack of motivation, financial constraints, time management issues, and of course, digital divide. Opportunities for the next 5 years, that's a question we asked. Many are talking about government, the SWAYAM, NEP 22, offering, opportunities, integration of emerging, of course, AI, AR, VR, big data. The universities are thinking this will help to increase the flexibility and accessibility for diverse learners. The challenge is quality assurance. Either employability or in other terms, the quality of education that we provide is obviously a question. And that is why, if you offer a student a regular program and an online program, they tend to select the regular program. It's not that they still have an opportunity and they select an online program or distance program, unless otherwise there is a specific need. Secondly, employers are an online ODL saying that these candidates are not eligible to apply. The third is obviously as an accrediting body. We have a manual for online ODL university. So we ourselves think, okay, the quality to graduates are different. And In other countries like UK, they look at the knowledge of the students. So the quality and every time we talk about so many, but never talk about the student and how it helps every, platform. So future plans of ODDE, that question is the first, industry-oriented program content, faculty training, top, of the online. What are the focus areas? Quality assurance. That's the topmost. Align curriculum with industry workforce needs. Focus smaller package of skills for someone to move to a better job. So they don't need to do a 60 credit or 100 full program to acquire the skills, credential, and to get a qualification. Build it for diverse learners. Invest in faculty training, student support systems. Foster global partnership exchanges. Strengthen India's digital infrastructure and encourage ongoing research. There's not much research done in online education and not much research. So today, more than 75% of the colleges and the universities are not accredited. It means that we have work in front of us. And Dr. Radhakrishnan has come out with two major accreditation to bring these large number of institutions. And then institutions grow model, and at the level 1 to 5, at the level 5, those for level 5 institutions will be the globally known institutions for multidisciplinary education and research. That's the framework. Now, NAC in the last 30 years has accredited only 15,000 institutions. When we talk about these 55,000 colleges and about 1,170 universities, we will take our lifetime, next 20, 30 years to accredit it at our speed. So we need to accredit large number of institutions in a shorter span of time. Accreditation manual, we have, well, in basic accreditation, we have about 50 metrics, and each metric has got about 2 items. Okay. Now, there are 100 data points for which they give a data and a supporting document. Okay. Now, in our traditional approach, we used third-party agencies. This data as well as along with the document. And that we face a lot of challenges. I don't need to tell you what kind of challenges we will face in India. Okay, we face those called challenges. And now, on top of it, we need to do it at a faster, rate. So now can we look at, data and document validation? How can we put AI into this? That's the first one. Which means that for the 100 items, there are Excel sheets, there are documents, there are certain, maybe some videos. We need a system which will automatically map with the data and say that these are correct. Okay. The second is validating the institutional data. The second is, as I put, stakeholder validation through stakeholder crowdsourcing, which means if we want to look at the data from the stakeholder perspective. For example, if the institution says that we have 70% placement, certain data. Can somebody validate that data to me? Okay. The third thing is about data validation across cycles. Okay. I submit some data in the current cycle now. I submit some other data for the next cycle. Relation between these two data. That's the third. The fourth is prediction of movement to higher levels. If only we can, sort of predict what kind of three. What are those attributes or items which make the institution move from one to the other level? Lastly, identifying patterns for policy making. So this is, I agree to come and talk here because of this opportunity. A lot of seek solutions. Thank you.
For sharing your valuable insights. Proceed with the thematic session. First session is on scalability in open education, which focuses on artificial intelligence can drive, improve efficiency, and enable scalable solutions in open, distance, and digital education. I have with us today Professor Partha Pratim Chakrabarti, a distinguished senior professor of computer science of IIT Kharagpur. Chakrabarti has done research and published of artificial intelligence, VLSI, and embedded systems of several national initiatives, including the National Digital Library of India, the Global Initiative of Academic Networks, and the Scheme for Promotion of Academic and Research Collaboration. May I now request Professor Chakrabarti to come on the dais and address the gathering.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Khan for inviting me to this session. And it's always a pleasure to be with you all. But I'm going to talk on something which everybody knows, and everybody has their views and thoughts on this topic in a deep manner. So you will pardon me for all the... I have to therefore present something in an interesting way, in which I will also talk about the approach that we have planned for this and for which we are willing to collaborate with everyone else. Knowledge has developed through a series of 5 steps. The first is no knowledge to new knowledge, which is discovery of knowledge. Theory, where you develop theory from, then you applications at economics of scale, incremental every day in a commodity, the example of which the pen that we use. It has taken 2000 years of evolution, deep science, and every day something new is coming up in it. But over the years, we have made knowledge deep, vast. And in order to accommodate knowledge so deep and vast, human beings tried to do what is called specialization. And in order to do specializations, human beings divided knowledge. Physics, chemistry, biology, humanities, social science, physical chemistry, biophysical chemistry, find human-inspired biophysical, mathematical, biologically, economically defined chemistry. And by doing that, we have created for ourselves experts who know so much that they know nothing about anything else. It has become the source of the problems in the world because we do that one optimization and forget about this. And nature, the world, society does not forgive us. And therefore, in spite of all the improvements that we have fundamental problems of making equality, fraternity, comfort. Among of things that we have done, one thing came up, started integrating everything. It's called computation. It is a model by which it allows you to model anything. Is a universal mechanism that became the spouse of every day. So you started having computational chemistry, computational economics, computational biology. It is a discipline. Anybody understand their discipline writes code. And the was that integrating discipline. Computation formed the basic, but did not integrate as it is. But computation changed everything. Then came a new entity, which we all think we know. What is this entity? What is this entity? This entity said, integrate all knowledge. Every connection of every discipline, integrate. Now, in order to, what should I do? Which means that instead of modeling a physics problem by a physics equation, a chemistry problem by something, an economics problem by something, I need to have a rep that will model, quote unquote, any statement. So one foundation is a representation. I need to be able to represent any problem. Was that given a problem represented in that format, need to have a general purpose solver, not one for solving mathematics, one for solving a drawing, one for understanding a painting. I need to have one solver, solve every problem in that representation. Third was the most unique part of it, which says that every time I solve, I become solving that. And that was called learning. In these things, over a period of time, artificial intelligence people are very at usurp somebody else's knowledge, renaming it and calling it my own. So they took this step-by-step method, which had an algorithm is as solving mechanisms and data algorithms, and the algorithms they called symbolic AI. Then they took over improved new methods in statistics, converted that both into statistical solver, statistical learning, and data science. The third thing they found, which was interesting thing, is that algorithms, all of statistics required human beings to define functions and methods. But world problems are not like that. And one of the fundamental problems is the following. Give you a picture. If I take from here to Bharat Mandapam, you will know I'll go here, I'll go here. Step mechanism, which is. But if I give you a picture of Professor, you will say this is Uma Kanjila. I will say proof. To prove. You will say pictures of Uma Kanjila, but you don't have a proof. Which means there is a mechanism. The It's instantaneous, but the explanation is almost impossible. Cognition. Beings still don't understand cognition. But computer scientists, as I said, they developed a model of not linear items and combined it, called it a neural network, and connection is to a neural model, which is able to now do statistical and connectionistic, where the representation of any problem is like solving it and learning is like that to you in a few steps. Entity which is coming up, add to these three dimensions. Once it comes, you will have quantum representation, quantum solving and quantum learning, and all of this will combine. Gives you this new power to manage, model problems in a manner in which human beings cannot get them in the way their brains think. Yet solutions are coming. Yet we are able to find explanations. And therefore, Gary Kasparov, whatever we talk, and somebody who is an agent, or you have an aircraft which is completely digitally modeled, all of this is the power of this six-edge triangle that we have. But there does not end the story. The story becomes important when you say that now I will actually capture all the knowledge of the world. It is not the molecule structure. I will model steps. And these two steps, one step is, we know, the graph is the marks time a student studies versus the marks they get. Typically, you'll have a plot and you get so much marks, what is the expected time? And if you have so much time you have studied, what is the expected mark? So this is the simple Now, what people is they have taken all the knowledge of the world and everything, data, text, and created billion by 1 billion and y-axis. Axis is the point in this. They have created a representation, which I call the orange representation. It's a trillion representation of every piece of knowledge that is available. Things that if I give you a picture, you convert it into that representation, and by your method of representing learning, you can age 40, walking, male. So everything. So this is called the or the predictor. The more dangerous by the generative AI is the reverse model. I give you the model, this world model, song, lady, Bengali. It will produce a Bengali film song. So which means it is synthesizing. It is synthesizing. Remember, so this is the combination of today. It has this trillion dimension space, knowledge, PROMP, GPT, it is producing this knowledge, generating this knowledge. But let us remember that this is of interpolation. Only that it is in a billion by billion dimension space. All interpolation has error. Mathematical interpolation, whether you do x to x, it will have error. And therefore, all inaccurate GPT is wrong. This is wrong. It is all error. Every mathematical technique. Therefore, since we know that there are more problems that cannot be solved, that can be solved, the solutions have this property. It is statistically approximately. So, mathematical property of all solutions. With very high, its accuracy will keep the probability, keep accuracy low, the probability of result will be high. It's a matching problem. The more this is what modern AI today. And we have captured all knowledge in the world, and whatever it will try to answer, except a few things which are. So we have knowledge in the world. We've done something interesting. It's a machine, it does not understand ethics and all this. Produces images and pictures and videos, which is quote unquote unacceptable to. In order out of that, through a process of human learning and human-based these large language models. So how does it work? What it produced? It is no magic in computing. There is no magic to modern AI. Just engineering, computing. They took all equations. They took written in chemistry, reactions, removed the names, converted all the variables. Then they told cluster it into a table such that all elements are next to each other and use the periodic table. Periodic table is considered one of the biggest human ingenuity. And this table, very interestingly, has equivalent from which it was inspired, we don't know. The Paninian, they have a one-to-one correspondence. Book only considered the most authentic textbook, better than any human written text. People trained all research papers on materials up to 2009 and the next materials. 5 human in 2012 was done in of computation, was discovered in that time 3 years later. This person, you may have heard of Matthew Paz, 18-year-old, 1 year of research, took all NASA data and described chemistry, PhD to understand structure requires 5 years of one PhD student. AlphaFold did 200 structures. Means it is 1 billion human hours. Now, computer scientists and AI people are getting Nobel Prize in physics, chemistry. You know, we've taken over the field. Just about it. Now, what has it started? Now, these LLM pipelines, new trend of create a jet engine, you'll get all the data trained, and you'll design the next jet engine. You'll generate So if GPU chips, we just LLMs. You use LLMs, it will do at least 80% of the job for you. We are training our own students. We have students to write C code. We have trained LLMs to help them write C. And don't stop at that. People have taken pictures and asked it to found fundamental. It looked at and found of Newton's laws of motion. In which human beings can now cover knowledge. And then you have your, everything can be tracked. Expressions from your eye tracker. But don't mind reading. Produce sentences. But you talk to, say, you know, this company's phone is not working, etc. I talk on. All I get is not WhatsApp, but it is giving you the. So you can imagine that the backdoor deal between them is fantastic. I worked with Sundar is my student. Everything about you is known, except what your wife knows about. Human beings have illusions. If I turn a fan at a particular speed, though the fan is running, you will think it is still. Not these stroboscopic like that. If I give you of a pig and I change only 200 of the AI, I can make AI as an airliner. Whereas to a human being, it still looks, which means AI can be attacked. If I have an autonomous, if you don't write the AI properly, then a red picture signal coming to you, I will just tweak a few things by sending it to you, see green. So there will be disaster. Huge disaster. This is many weapons are. These errors are all due to hallucinations, etc., but they are all interpolation errors. So AI needs human because this is the first time in the history of human existence that human being has come potentially more intelligent than it. And human being has no psychological capacity to understand what to do with it. That is why we are scared, we are afraid. Something which is just a simply engineered product. So it's going to change the future of learning, future of work, and So what is the topic of? So here is the opportunity. The opportunity lies in content, in delivery, in assessment, in interaction, in knowledge, generation, and everything else. And it is this we have to make to democratize knowledge as much as possible. This is an opportunity for India to everywhere. It is just opportunities that are not provided. So how do we do? And that is something, if we don't do, we'll take the next bus. I work with from Google. Started off with he was the VP of Google, and he announced his new. If you've heard about it, what it does, that it is the most voice and text. You give it a problem, you ask something, or you solve something, give a orange. So you will know, oh, I'm making a mistake. So it is a very patient tutor who is talking to you. I don't have time here. Otherwise, I've shown you a video and you'll be amazed to see quality of interaction. And as you may have heard, that already come up with a tools is SAT for free. You have been announced that you can do JEE mains for free, like that. And then how to do this curriculum and make our models, how to make federated data. We have a complete plan for doing that. And then, as Professor Kannabiran was saying, content accreditation, teacher accreditation, pathways accreditation, pedagogy analytics. And let us not forget the most important part and the biggest problem in India is the psychological problem of learning. So as we move from hunting to industry to information, to a society that is truly creative, to a society where we can ensure that human beings can use technology, and remember that they are human beings more powerful, more creative than any technology can do for you. I think time has come for India to work together, and we need help from the whole world so that we can make things better. Any solution that is good for India, I assure you, will be good for a large portion of the world. So we know what we need. We need a knowledge democratizer. We need a trustworthy companion, and we need a life fulfiller. And we have an opportunity for doing that. And I look forward to help, collaboration from all of us so that we are being able to do that. Thank you very much. I thought I'll get a slip saying time is over. I have to stay here.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for your scholarly and thought-provoking presentation. We now proceed to roundtable discussion of session 1. This session will be chaired by Professor Partha Pratim Chakrabarti. I also invite the distinguished panelists for this session to the stage. Mr. Peter Kakasi, Head of Solution Consulting at Google for Education in Asia Pacific, Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, with over 20 years in IT consulting and 13 plus years at Google. Based in Singapore, he works closely with governments, ministries, and institutions to build AI-enabled, collaborative, and scalable learning ecosystems. We have Mr. Vikram Malhotra, Director and AI Technology Strategist at Microsoft. He has led transformative initiatives across corporate, government, healthcare, and public sector organizations in India, Southeast Asia, and Japan. His work focuses on large-scale she leads large-scale technology-enabled skilling enhance employable workforce readiness. Focuses we also have Anirban Chakrabarti, Professor, Jawaharlal Nehru University, globally recognized researcher in complex systems, data science. He Scientist Medal and a fellow of the Third World of Sciences UNESCO. Also have Dr. Mani Madhukar, who will join us. He's a program at IBM Innovation Center for IBM India. He has worked extensively on AI, cloud computing. He is on bridging education industry through innovative curriculum design, faculty, and student-centric. He will join us virtually. Professor Partha Pratim Chakrabarti, sir, you requested to kindly initiate the discussion.
Thank you, thank you. Now that books are over, serious discussion, and the panel, I have a bunch of, and I'm sure many of you have a bunch of questions. So we'll first have, and then we'll open it for a few questions from the house. And the first question that I'm wasting time, and I'll request the panelists to respond to the way in which they feel, is in order to develop next generation platform for India, are the key aspects which are different for India, and how do you think that we can get it done for India? I think this is a topic I must have thought ask Peter to.
Yeah, which it's I visit India. Always a pleasure to be here and give a shout for and the continued work that, on this. What makes India special and what consideration? I think I'll be stating this, but I still interesting clauses that you mentioned at the end was whatever you built for India will be good for the world, because for a number of reasons, but I think the other way around as well, whatever we built for such a large part of the world that that just the sheer size and scale of India is a challenge on anyone in this room, right? From a technological perspective, from a societal perspective, from an infrastructure perspective. So scale is one, and with scale comes not just physical and geographical and cultural, but linguistic as well. So as we start thinking about with some of our as part of our customer advisory board, well, theme came up as that's great, a general tool to all the hundreds of languages across India. So I think they're kind of, to me, and language are probably, and to the others as well, to kind of we can circle back. We want to get in these questions.
Just from Peter, other than linguistics, I think what is equally is to help learners on how to solve and learn various problems, which is one. And I'm taking professor who said that we don't degrees, but we need programs for microscale. Interest focused. I look at system to change over years is individualistic at a level handheld by a curated content by leveraging framework, cloning a teacher, and it has already for of Sydney, who's using agentic for hyper-personalized learning from teachers' perspective. Whether curriculum can be curated and basis the student's interest and the skill capability. And from India's perspective, Microsoft is very much focused on. We have already started micrograms with the, and we helping bring in over patterns that we see in the next decade.
I think nuances that both of you have brought in. I want to give a context, which part of TCS I am to explain my responses well. So I'm part of a unit in TCS which focuses on education technology. And over the last, we'll celebrate 15 years on. We have candidates, so 50 million candidates, which is 50 crore candidates, been across assessments, recruitment assessments, and so on and so forth. And of course, work a lot with the government. Now, the reason I wanted to bring of assessments, right? I mean, assess that in out here in this room, some relative. And if I correlate to the topic and to open and distance, to definitely focus on. But what is missing out? That brings out how is it that assessment can enable employability in the country. Important is that, and we heard that metric today, and you will definitely hear the metric. Your youth are not employable. Today in our country. Need to see how is it that we can bring AI, ensure integrity of the certificate that the candidate is carrying. Essentially influences the employed, not only and of course from TCS over the last 15 a lot of work, and I can talk.
Thank you. Slide. Can I just show to please?
Yeah. So, Professor Kanji, our organizing committee, and it's a great honor to be part of this panel. Now, I am probably the academic The industry people have already told what they have to say. To bring in a different one slide that, of this foundation, educate children, and we really faced a challenge during and post-pandemic, having to train the second is we started in 2018 another foundation, train data scientists for free, basically to reduce the university and the academia. This I run with Sarabjot Singh Anand and others. 600-hour training. We have finished 15 batches and we're trying to scale up. And that's where I think we also have a lot of other challenges, which I'm talking about. And the third thing we realized is the interdisciplinarity. So in India, the problem, as Professor Chakravarti, so then say Edward Witten, who is one of the most popular, the world is very complex. A little about a lot. From Edward Witten was in history, then he went to economics, then to mathematics, and now physicists. So we started because we wanted to have this people from mathematics, computer science, statistics, scientists, humanity come and work together. What we find is that we have departments, but they don't talk to, right? And what we wanted to do is problems where we need to scientists, social scientists all working together. So we started this initiative last year. Now, as Professor Chakravarti and others have already told, the main thing I wanted to bring in was this aspect that in India, we have a huge amount of first generation learners and people who are working. Now, we've seen this is a data from OECD that including the advanced countries, there are inequalities on the first generation learners, and we have to tackle that. And JNU is one university, huge number of students of such type catered to have that inclusivity. The second thing, what we realized is that the Indian learners are often good at execution. So you tell them something, they'll do it, but they don't question, which is different from what they do in the Western countries. I was in France. Oh, sorry. Hello. Okay. Should I continue? Okay. So I was in France and I remember the French students would ask questions. In here, we actually feel afraid to question our teachers as a mark of respect. Now that has to be brought in because what we train in the Western countries will. And I remember we were doing a joint project with Australia and then about something called weird data set. I didn't know that stands for West Industry Democratic. With those data sets, telling better, cater to the Indian people, which is a huge problem and diverse problem, right? And that's where we also found that paper, which was appeared in the said, I am to adolescents, especially those who are socially and emotionally vulnerable. Huge population, socially and emotionally vulnerable. So these models, and we are trying to take AI, which will be used in other ways, we would have to take care of that. And I think stop there when I'll come back to it. Thank you. I wanted to show some of these things. That's why I took it that. Thank you.
Has Mr. Is to join at 6 p.m. Okay. Just continuing on a project with Google, very interesting one on hyper-local information, which means that where does these educator when you work with very data, etc., educator wanting to teach, when translate a fundamental concept which is known in English language to say to a Maithili or language of India, then that concept, how do you do that? A large number of people, they understand Indian stuff and they. So how do you present it so that it becomes more and more useful? Produce data set that the help. This is just one aspect. Professor Anirban just mentioned, and I would. What is the role of the trying to enable educators? Have thought about. One is direct, but need to educators. Native AI people, they have not grown up there. Completely lost. Are much ahead of them in the use of AI. So whether schools or in colleges, so I would again request panelists to share their. Would you like to start?
What have we thought about the educator and systems that enable?
What do we have in scaling of education to enable educators to use AI?
Okay. So let's talking about the educators learning to be at the center. We all for educators focus on how is it that crux of it. Now to do that, for us to be able to understand the role of an educator, we are evolving, right? And interesting new word from one of with. So he said that learning has evolved today. Earlier, it used to be done on the stage. Then it moves, becoming a guide on the side. And now learning happens best when the learner is right. And what it is that there is stages of learning is important. And we enable our educators to enable all of these three dimensions. How is it that we can bring specifically in the distance learning activity, right? So if I look at stage, right, and I equal question which is being broadcasted, right? How is it that of course, AI has tools where you can see whether students are attentive, they're listening to you. Are they the ones who are actually in front of the platform? And those are insights that the educator, the person who's doing a really get it, right? Now, if I move to a guide by the side, and that is where a human with a personalized AI in the distance learning, where there is a lot of assignment that happens, project work that happens, and how is it that you can have a combination? The educator is these kind of systems as well. Only a system, an educator, but it's a combination. The third one is interestingly, student in the pit. You're giving them a problem state. That is where we need to. How is it that we can enable them? Set of tools and with the that entire nuance. What this will also do, entire learning journey pretty interesting for the learner, and which is a challenge in open distance learning where the learner motivation are a challenge. So that's my do it.
If I just build on that, so I love the concept that you brought on around. It used to be teachers in the front, and then it evolved to teachers now of students in front. And I think I wanted to build on that point. I think important to stay humble, because in this dynamic that existed, which is teachers, they were the ones who knew everything, and the students came to absorb some of that knowledge. right? And the dynamic was very one directional. With today's information age and AI, the students in the room are already about the topic or maybe have read more recent research papers, and the dynamic is very different. And I think that it's important for kind of go through that change of being comfortable in that new world. The other part to this is historical power dynamic, and maybe students to some degree challenging teachers in some. AI is challenging them as well, right? Because there might be information out there that even the professor maybe in their field of expertise doesn't know, but they're scared and they fear asking the question because, oh, why am I a professor? And we need to be very comfortable in this new world to be willing to be curious, and lifelong learning needs as well, not just them teaching, but for them learning as well. And then the last comment is in context of learners being, it's for teachers to take a role as opposed to a pure role, right? And facilitate, even if I don't know, I bring somebody else in. We've had amazing experiences where professors of, hey, somebody called, a long professor called somebody at NASA about this new star discovered, and they expert in us to tell them about the new star and how they went through the process. And while this example doesn't apply to AI necessarily, it does apply to the sense of just facilitation as opposed to one-directional teaching. And when they're not available, that's where AI comes in to be the assistant to the students as well. If the teacher is not available, the role of the teacher is, how do I build an amazing gem in Gemini or other tools to be there for the students when they're ready to learn, right? So the student might not be available at the lesson, they might not want to follow up. AI is going to be there to repeat and be as well. So just wanted to build on that.
I'll just continue from there. I think you brought in the important qualities of humility, patience, curiosity. I'll add another dimension to it, which is adaptability. Now, adaptability in today's era will bridge the gap between the learner and the educator. We did certain experiments, but it is in classroom teaching in K-12 scenarios. And we looked at localized content. We ran a pilot with NGO called Siksha in Karnataka, where the biggest challenge as a part of social change that happened in the classroom was taking the fear out of the teacher, which is one, fear of technology, two, fear of being questioned and overshadowed by the knowledge which the young learner might already have. So the technology and the co-pilots which were designed to assist the teachers covered these four aspects to help prepare them. And I was glad to see health, which we ignore. Unfortunately, AI is not good at emotions today, especially the human emotions, internal cognitive emotions. I'm still at a sensory levels. I can see, I can hear, I can do all this, but the emotional intelligence is still missing in there, which I think will get replaced or not replaced, is a question of a debate. But that element is what the teachers need to build upon and lead with this change, which is happening there. And especially when we put this in DL context, hyper-personalization will become important. Because one disconnect which I have seen in distant learning is one-to-one connect with the educator. How do I start bridging that? I think the agenda will start helping the teachers out. So our teachers and educators needs to start seeing this as an assistant tool and continue to be curious as well as creative with this. And slides, the last creative society. I think that's where we need to mature. Last but not the least, the curiosity will also help us ask the right question to find the right questions and the problems. So, which is called the applied science at the end of the day, or applied applications.
Sure. Yeah. So when I begin my classes of the master's students in JNU, I start with the nursery rhyme, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, How I Wonder What You Are. And I tell them that actually I italicize the words wonder, and then because as scientists, and then asking the right questions, how and what, we cannot do good science. And I think that's important what Professor Partho Chakraborty said, that what is education? So I often quote Malcolm Forbes, who said that the purpose of education is to replace an empty mind with an open one. It's not to fill up with information. Now we teachers or educators have to remember that what is the it's not to fill up information. And as what Peter was saying, that information is at their fingertips now. You ask anything to Google or to ChatGPT or any of the, they would have more information than what is useful for them. In fact, what is correct and relevant becomes a problem for the student. So what I think we have to also understand, and that our role as a teacher is changing. As Smriti and Peter already mentioned, that we are no longer the information provider. So we them how to think critically. I think AI would still require a lot of time to catch up with human beings, the critical thinking part. And that's why the agentic AI would be some sort of a thing that we need to work upon, the personalization and hyper-personalization. Because I always also see students, even in in-person teaching, that people learn at their own pace. People will take grasp very quickly, other people take longer time. Now that's where I think AI can again give you that liberty that you can learn at your own pace. Now that is something which I think we have, and what teachers should understand is that they are yeah, we would still in the education would be our best. So we should use, that's where I think the professional development of teachers need to be done periodically. Professor Partho was mentioning that sort of a living policy. We can't make a policy. And we have to examine what is happening and adapt very quickly. I think what Vikram was mentioning also, that adaptation is very important, because you also see, in these social systems such as education, sometimes the feedback, and that makes the things more complex. We try to, but we don't know where, which we had not foreseen would. And so we need to constantly monitor and then see, how the teachers and students are responding, and then move forward. So we would have to build a system which is very flexible and very adaptable. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Just to add, since I teach and do research, otherwise I would have to work at home. So do work. That is why I only stay in the office all the time. So I just 6-7 days ago, I have, as everybody mentioned, I have had to adapt my teaching constantly. So a few days my class, which is the first year class. First year in you make one mistake, you're caught. Away by saying wrong. So the students came late because the previous teacher left them late. And I already provide all my slides, videos, everything up front. And then so I pretended that I was very angry. I said, I won't teach you. Here is more. You learn the topic. Then came the question, feedback from them. No, we are willing to come for an evening, for an in-person class, which because what we get in that class, it takes a lot of absorb it from AI. That is a very interesting output. The second is the pit concept. We go into a huddle and start discussion. So I tried another thing. I said, we can go online. All of us have access. We can discuss. After 2 or 3 steps, they said that no. We want physical. We want physical because during that physical interaction, there is something more we get other than the food and the cakes. There is something more that we get out of it. So I'm still trying to figure out whether AI can do that, because my feeling is that if human beings know how to do something, AI do it. So what is that intangible? Before I go to the audience and ask questions, I will now ask another interesting question that comes to our mind, and that comes to the mind of everybody in society, including our teachers and our parents. See, calculators came. For calculators, you would ask parents, what is 37 multiplied by 40? Today, you ask me, what is 13 multiplied by 17? So we have lost, because of calculators, we have lost. Now, students are using AI. Are they going to become more, or are they going to become dumb? Dumb in terms of their ability to become better, to produce more, and to become. So this question is this going to happen, or is this going to happen to a select? Is this not going to happen? What is AI supposed to do to ensure that it does not happen? So I open this up to anybody who would like to take
I
this.
think that's a tough question, sir.
Yeah, last question before we go to the audience.
I think that's where the entire concept of responsible AI is coming up in a big way. And I think it'll take us some time for it to evolve. But if I look at it differently, the last slide of yours answered that. We are moving from knowledge or information society to a creative society, right? And it was kind of double verified by saying that we need to move towards an open mind rather than a filled up mind. So was our current education system filling up our mind rather than opening our minds? That we need to look at in the context of AI is only a viewpoint I want to give.
Just to give you, before we move to Anirban, just to give, Thomas Alva Edison said that if you want to know how good a top-rated scientist is, you ask them one question. What is the speed of sound? And the first person who failed to answer that was Albert Einstein. It's the speed of sound. I don't remember.
Right. So I think that's a very interesting question Chakravarti has proposed. So I remember during the pandemic classes, and I was taking classes, and my 2 sons, they were also attending classes. And suddenly I see my wife actually getting angry with my younger son because he was apparently doing a maths quiz. He was coming first because Cortana, the square root of this, and he was writing it, and the Cortana was giving answer well.
And then my wife was actually caught him and told him, no, it's not important for you to come first in the quiz or come, you do it in a great speed. You can. So that's where I think what you're asking is very important. So we have to tell the students that, see, the information is not important. See, when we are educating the mind, we are preparing them to have certain skills so that they can solve problems or apply the knowledge in their life. Like what Partha said, I asked, what is the charge of an electron? 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb. Now, what do I do with? Don't use that information. Everybody here would remember that because it was drilled into our mind. That is not. It's just, and that I think we won't be able to compete with any computer AI thing because it is there and it's sort of you don't know how to use it. And I have to teach. Educators' role is very important. We teach them to use this knowledge and solve practical problems or use them in their lives. If my knowledge is not of any use in this education is actually meaningless. And that's why I think in our system, people, including, I think you didn't notice probably that Partha had a slide and quotation with Rabindranath, and I had also that same quotation that the highest education is that which does not only merely provide information, but to put in with existence, with all the existence. That is the. So if we teach them these type of things, that's where I think required, and that's why we cannot replace teachers, and we have to understand how I can use AI teaching the students. I think that's where our focus. Yeah. I'll just add a couple of things from my own. What is important is that the knowledge and information need the sweepstakes. It's already there. I think it is the curiosity of mind, asking the right questions, and think logically, rationally, and laterally. The approach and the methodology out of the table stakes. Because I go through a questioning from my kids. Why are you insisting us on learning maths tables? I said, fine, don't learn maths tables. Use calculators, use the word, but you should solve the problem. Text and how knowledge that you have learned, either multiplication, division, addition, to arrive at the final answer, which may be right or wrong, mathematically doesn't matter. But logically, build that rational, this is how I will solve. And the way I look at it is, all the knowledge possible already in place. It's the human curiosity that will help drive the outcomes out of for overall societal.
It's a perfect segue. I wanna a personal myself on this. The is distance learning, online learning. I did my undergrad in person. I did my postgrad in person as well. But then 10 years later, I decided, okay, I want to study something new, and I went into a distance learning course, completely different. Electric. What my father don't ask me why. One of the course tutorials or quizzes, I came up with this problem that solar angles to calculate on October 2024 or it might have been 2020 at the time, what was the angle of the sun in this station. And as someone who hasn't read any of the materials up until then, as the distance learners don't always study when the teacher tells them the things, but they study at their own time. So I haven't actually done anything. I just tried to do the quiz. I was like, okay, well, let's just ask AI. Can you solve the problem for me? I entered the problem statement, and the output was beautiful, right? It didn't just give me the answer. It told me how to go through the problem statement, how to actually calculate it, reference the materials that I've kind of attached into my prompt, and said, after 2 pages of reading, like, here is the answer, 1.64 or whatever it was. Now, as I read through it, I realized, okay, well, the way we calculate this is October the 17th in 2020, the 17th of October is like the 267th day of the year. And that was very important because the calculation required the number of the day it was in that year. Now, what's so special about 2020, the year 2020? It's a leap year, and October is after February. So I had to go back because I wanted to double check, like, did AI consider this? Went back through the calculation, substituted the number of days, calculated the number of days on October 17th was 267, and found out that no, AI did not consider that. And the answer was actually a very different value. It was 1.53. I'm making up the numbers here, but like the concept applies. I think what I'm trying to illustrate with this is very much on Vikram's point, as well as what we need to teach students is less so the times table and less so how they go about solving the problem, but the curiosity of wanting to understand how they got there. And getting the answer right is important, but more importantly, not just give them an answer, use the learning. And then how do we instill that curiosity to double check and make sure that they are right? And have I applied my learning? Well, the way I'm going to apply my learning is double checking the answer. That is purely a mentality thing, right? Are you curious? Are you motivated? Do you want to get it right? Or do you just want to get the answer and then move on to playing games or whatever else students might do? So I tell this story often because yes, it shows that AI doesn't always get it right, but it also shows what's important, and that's the mental and the mentality thing as opposed to anything else.
Perfect. I think I love
I
this.
just want to add one point. Just going back to the assessment part, finally, it will depend on what we assess the students on, because it's not going to be a AI-based assessment. So that's going to also drive what the students focus on, whether AI exists or it doesn't exist.
I fully agree. So let me combine these two. So somebody asked me about this question, and the answer that I gave, how do you teach your students nowadays? How do you tell your students so that you don't become dumber with AI? So I tell them that there are 4 things you need to learn, and I try to build it in my class. The first thing is that given a problem, if I give you a solution, can you check that solution? That means, can you check whether this solution or not? Often, checking is and solving. But if you cannot check, then you are in the neighbor. That's exactly what you talked about. The second thing is, if you have not been able to, if you have been able to check, can you solve the problem natively on your own? If you cannot solve the problem on your own, can you use AI to solve the problem, but explain the solution to another person in your own language? That I tell my students is that if you cannot solve using AI, you cannot solve, then can you solve it as a team? Because throughout your life, you will be working on problems which you don't understand. whose solutions also you don't understand. But you know somebody who understands. And at least part of it. And combined together. So this is what I try to bring to my class. But at the end, I would like to tell you that, having been a teacher all my life and a science teacher, I was never allowed to teach my daughter. Because my students would say, all the simple things we will teach her, you give us time. Take me away and by rotation would teach my daughter. So 2 times I was given a chance because somebody was not there. And lost my job. Because my wife completely disagreed. So that time she was learning multiplication. That was the first time. She was learning multiplication. And my wife comes and sees, is sitting down and doing something. What are you doing? Oh, I set a question paper for Baba. He's answering it, I'm correcting. So she set the question paper for me. I have answered the question paper. Now she's marking right, wrong, good, silly mistake, and giving me total. My wife said, it's all wrong. And I lost my job. Quietly, my daughter came and said, Baba, this is the best teaching. I lost my job. I've incorporated this into one of my assessment tools now, saying that if you can make a question, which is good enough, now with AI as evaluators, you can start doing that, auto-rated. And if you can correct an answer and find out the solution. The second time was when she was in higher school. And again, I lost my job because she was solving physics problem. And my wife comes and sees, and anyway, I never study on the table or chair, all on the bed. So she's solving something. I'm lying down, half snoring. She gets stuck. Cut. I wake up. Then I do one step. As soon as she understands what is next to be done, go to sleep. Again, she will continue. Again, I lost my job. But this we have introduced in this tool AI tutor. They do something, they get stuck, they give a nudge to the tutor. I'm stuck, help me. And then the tutor does something, again they say, okay, got it. So, the whole way, as all of you have pointed out, from the beginning, that the teachers themselves need to evolve with the technology. I think we have had some good suggestions and topics, and I've been told that now I can continue. More jokes are required. Okay, so we'll move to the next question, which is interesting, important. With all this AI, open distance education, everything becoming successful, we all know today that open AI, Google recruitment is not through all this. They throw you into a pit, they give you a problem. You take your time, you solve the problem. Based on the solution that you give, they decide after talking to you whether they will take you or not. And they have many other things. So now the next question is, after all this happens, will degrees, certifications, or qualifications that are traditional, or in fact, universities, will at all be relevant anymore? All going down the drain. We are all, because there is a saying that all teachers will now become equivalent to Zomato gig workers. Today, you have to teach for half an database, relational database, this there, online lecture is there, you have to do this. Become gig workers, whether degrees will be required, what will happen?
I remember there's already one study which is showing that if you use the users, they are actually becoming, which was previous question actually. There is a paper already in MIT, and I think it's. Right. That is the role of the educator almost becoming like a worker, and we are going to be a part, and the degrees are relevant or not. So is like what we are seeing today I often tell this to the students again. The earliest thing, not everybody would require a master's degree, or not everybody would require a PhD degree to get a job. Population in our country, as well as the actually forces you to go towards higher and higher education. Now, what skills, new skills, when we are moving from bachelor's to PhD? And remember that the PhD training is very, because it trains you to solve anything which is unknown. Till masters, we often teach things which are already there in the textbooks, or what is PhD training is something where you start facing something which you don't know, nobody knows. And that's why your originality comes in. Most of the abroad have already incorporated that research element in the undergraduate as well. And India is slowly picking it up. And I think in the NEP, there is a lot of provision for this bachelor's 4-year program, fourth year being the research component. This is where I think what we were talking about, that the problem solving would actually become more polished or mature. You know, we train if we, you know, sort of encourage them to do research, which nobody has thought of, or which nobody has thought of. I think that, like, degrees sort of platform and sends a signal. I remember there's a Nobel laureate in economics who said that what is value of the degree? It just gives a signal that you are at this level. These skills, I think, the industry that how important is your problem solving skill, not your degree. I think that is more important.
This was one of the conversations we were having. My colleagues in TCS, and what is that when students go through degree program, it's not just a computer science. It is about to interact with, how to collaborate with people, how, like my son is your college alumni, sir. So yeah, he passed out year before last. Is that I have learned my life skills there, right? So I don't think degrees will go away. I think the entire system will go away. It's just what may change. Programs are constructed. Like, you gave an example of the final year being research oriented. Those are things that might change. But as per me, at least for the near future, it's still there.
I'll pick up from the life skills. I think life skills is something which one is in a classroom, as well as on street, as well as daily life in a society one lives there. I have a slightly radical. Do we really need degrees in future or not? The more I from a base, why do we study? Why higher education? That I'm able to earn something at the end of the day, and I am able to live life comfortably, whatever chosen area of interest I have. Now, employability. Now, employability is to solve a problem at the end of the day for a given corporate, for a given institute, for an entrepreneur also at the end of the day. If I have that, and life skills incorporated me as an individual, degrees don't matter. It's still my curiosity, my ability to solve problems, and my ability to be street smart at the end of the day, to navigate myself in the complex web of humans. Whether teachers and educators would be gig workers, I don't think so. Because the experience that one gets there, it's not the knowledge. There is multiple things which are happening in a classroom or in an interaction, which goes beyond technology or AI, which softly translate to soft skills or end of the day, collaboration. It has a fix for collaboration also. Different LLMs can debate on a topic and give you an answer. So they are collaborating the inputs. So future, difficult to predict, but I think ability to solve problems must be ingrained right from our basic education all the way up, not waiting for the PhDs to happen.
It's a very interesting discussion going on, but yes, sir. Please continue.
Thank you. Just some final notes as the conversation developed, and I think I second around at the end of the day, the goal is for happy. Right? What does employability need? A variety of skills, and some that those skills have been attained, and that's what ultimately degrees represent. You know, you mentioned micro-credentials to certify that you've picked up some skills. Universities represent under macro certification that you have developed a range of skills. One of you've probably learned something and could absorb some content. You've learned some lifelong skills. Also proven, and I'd say this lightheartedly but seriously at the same time, you've also stick out to one thing of 4 years or 5 years and continue every day and complete a project, a job, or something that you've to do, which is a degree. And for an employer, you kind of need all three things. Folks that are coming in, when I interview folks, I look for like, what do they know? How do they work? And how were there in their job history as well, right? So I think there's absolutely a place for the tomorrow to prove it, whatever you want to call it. So you want to call it a macro certification, or will that adapt? Will that reshape itself? Probably to some shape or form. But like the three tenets of life skills, content, and just proving that you're willing to kind of work hard on a project are the sort of things employers look for.
So let me end with another statement which I got from my students. And you know, what is the success for a C student in Stanford? And so they said the following: after the first year, you have not formed a startup and money, and if you have not been, then if in the second or third year you have to join a startup and get something, then you have failed the second corporation and graduating. You're I would like to all my panelists for discussion, and I hope this is.
Thank you so much. It's indeed a very going on. Let's have a session for 10 minutes. I request E.V. Subramaniam, Director Development Division, IGNOU, to coordinate discussion. request him to kindly stick to 2 questions.
Thank you very much. This may be answered by anybody. One immediate ODDE institution, 12 months. One immediate action that the ODL institute, like Open Distance Learning Institution, what action can be taken with respect to this AI? I think bring the educators on board first. Enable them with the right tool sets, the new senses. Focus on them immediately.
Program for educate is, I think, we should do. So capacity building. And it's obvious that the huge fund of 100, if it gives us a funding, ODDE, we are open to start taking it up.
One perspective comes out. Last course with the TISS, which is Social Institute of Sciences, and I met up with few students who were pursuing their MA in BA in history. They were clueless about after that. They were clueless about why they chose. So I think added to all the students that if you're picking up a course, what next for you? Because employability at the end of the day is the key, coming and taking up these programs, and they join learning because they don't have probably another word. I think we need to focus on employability for these students for sure.
For the panel, last question. What will ODDE look like in 2030?
Probably no different than any regular education.
The current solvers, students team solved the JEE last semester. Can you guess the score it got? Got was higher than rank. Everybody is going to have a spectacle. So every question is the answer. So completely different. I cannot even speculate to happen. That's quite a bit.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair and panelists. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely. For a very insightful session. I'm on the stage to Professor Pratim Chakrabarti. Photograph. Thank you. May I request Professor Uma Kanjilal to kindly felicitate Professor Pratim Chakrabarti and express our gratitude. Full session. Request Professor Uma Kanjilal to felicitate Mr. P. Ma'am, you Ma'am, you're requested to kindly felicitate Ms. Smriti Mulye. Please felicitate Professor Anirban Chakra. Thank you, madam. We feel delighted, Dr. Linda Amrin. I just want to tell since will be there questions at that time. Dr. Linda Cooper is Director of Academic Practice, Online and Distance Education, Director for Online and Distance Education University. Invite her to address the gathering and share her perspectives on AI, distance and digital education.
Thank you very much. It's a to be here. Completely daunted by the expertise in the room and the panel. So please forgive me from a perspective of an academic who works in online and distance education and who works in staff development in online and distance education particularly. It's such an exciting time in India. There's so much, and AI is part. I wanted to, before I start, one thing that the panel discussed, and the university degree job. Many of my students don't go because it's about a job. They go because they're passionate about social mobility, passionate about change in society, passionate about the subject. I went about the periodic table, interestingly enough, that AI has just redeveloped. So I think it's important to recognize that universities are the site of creation of new knowledge. Students and ourselves are part of that process. So let me address the question of perspectives on artificial and it's interesting. At the University of London, we're involved in a lot of work in artificial intelligence in all sorts of systems. That's management of student experience, management of student access to library resources, AI tutors, starting to do some work in AI. So I want to speak really from that perspective of somebody who is in the world of AI, but not an expert by any means. Artificial intelligence ask, what is the impact from different perspectives? We often encounter talk about AI as though it's a coherent revolution and a threat. And if you what I do with educators, with teachers in higher education and teachers in schools, then you'll know that very often they see AI as a threat. They often see it as a disruption. Not so often are they seeing it as a solution. But the point is that AI is not one thing, is experienced differently depending on where you stand. For some, AI is a productivity tool. Tremendous anxiety. For education institutions, it's a governance challenge. And as we've seen in the discussion today, for education, it may pose an existential question. Today, But the most important conversations about AI are not technical. They're human, ethical, and importantly, educational. From one perspective, AI is astonishingly powerful. We've seen it here. Vast amounts of information, recognize patterns we cannot see, and generate text, images, codes, and predictions at scale. Much faster, sometimes not completely accurately, but certainly. In this, it's about efficiency and augmentation. It speeds us up. It reduces friction. It does not understand. It does not take responsibility. The moment we output with understand or speed with quality, we begin to hand over should remain human. AI does not. It changes what we mean when we talk about. It changes what it means to know. In an AI-rich, as has been discussed earlier, it's about having the answer. It's about asking the right question, understanding the context, recognizing limits, and not to trust the system. AI systems are not neutral. They reflect the data, values, and inequality societies that build them. We are faced, therefore, with ethical and political questions, not merely technical ones. AI challenge practices in education. AI is redefining jobs for our learners. Education transformation in the role of knowledge, the work, the ethical questions, and political and transformational questions without education. You just can't do it. We all know that. That's why we have in every country and why we treasure them, even if we don't know. AI challenges many of our inherited should be based on the individual process is narrow definitions of academic integrity. We can see this as an invitation, opportunity to on learning as a process, thinking, not reproducing, reflection, not just performance, authenticity, not artificial certainty. The capabilities are many, including, as we've talked about, creativity, empathy, ethical reasoning, leadership, responsibility. Roles as educators may change, but ultimately that the importance of good human-led education is critical now than it perhaps ever was. I'm not suggesting that we don't use AI tools. That horse has left the. I think AI can really. Education must remain human-led, human-connected. And ODDE, open, digitally, all of those terms that we use, is ideally placed. Because actually we've in that flexible, complicated space for the last. We have been creative in a space more complex perhaps than face-to-face. We've been driven by innovation in education. It's not primarily a technical challenge, human mediated technology that provides us. AI reflects our priorities, assumptions, and our values. AI is provided to what we do. That's why it feels so existential in higher education. It's causing you, and we've had those questions on the table. Degrees exist. Will people want university. Does university matter? I would argue it does. And the thing is, this is actually comfortable. It's a profoundly in education. I know that my students are profoundly uncomfortable. They don't know what's right and what's wrong and so on. I know colleagues are profoundly uncomfortable. The people who work in libraries within these are profoundly uncomfortable. Feel of dissonance and within that space. It does really give us an opportunity to have the kinds of questions had here. I don't think we've had for a very long time. We are really engaging in some deep, meaningful, thoughtful points where we're trying to understand what our values and our priorities are. And when you're doing that, you can't do that without education. Education sits at the heart of values and priorities, it seems to me. So I think AI presents the most wonderful opportunity for us to refocus on our core values. It requires the attributes of good education, criticality, compassion, playfulness, invention, a design. And I know that that sits within particularly. Education is in education vital and for a really long time. Response to AI. AI can do or alongside AI tool.
Thank you for your insightful address. I request Professor Uma Kanjilal ma'am to kindly come on the stage to Linda. Thank you so much for. Let us now move on to session 2, Resilience and Inclusivity, AI for Bridging Education. This session focuses artificial intelligence can strengthen resilience and foster inclusivity by bridging educational divides across open, distance, and digital learning systems. I invite Professor Ganesh Ramakrishnan. Professor Ganesh Ramakrishnan is the Bank of Baroda Chair Professor Entrepreneurship in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at IIT Bombay. His research focuses on large AI and data-efficient AI for resource-constrained environments with publications in leading international journals and conferences. May I request, sir, to kindly deliver the keynote address, please?
Honorable VC Madam, distinguished senior colleagues like Professor Partha, and all the distinguished guests. Very humble to present to all of you some of our thoughts, also experiences in the journey in building India's sovereign large language model ecosystem. I would like to emphasize ecosystem here because you really can't be inclusive only retrospectively. You need to be inclusive by design, and that's right, resilience and inclusivity. And education is what better means for inclusivity than education. So the story of, thanks to the Ministry of Education, that several of us academicians, 7 institutions, and with no funding, with students, we under the pipelines of this is around 2020. The former telecom secretary Raja for inspiring us to do that. We reached out to industry. The Department of Science and Technology decided to fund 235 crores, helped us set up the whole thing through a Section 8 company. We got our CEO, Mr. Rishi Bal, who spent 3 decades in Seattle, Microsoft and Google Research. Eventually got our Vice President, Manish Singh, again, IIT Delhi graduate. So lots of IITs. And it's very exciting that we got engineers and researchers come together. Then India AI mission. So that's how it's been growing. We grew to 9 consortium members. Once we build capacity, we want every part of it, right? I mean, and in spirit, everyone is. So that's how it's grown with the company also having representation from the mighty whole of government and whole of nation. And we do extensively partner with government as well as private institutions through the company, not for profit Section 8 company, which cannot be bought out, run out of IIT Bombay. A lot of solution deployment across startups, right? So, I mean, just to give you a glimpse, like what are the things we have been doing? Building lots of foundational models, 7 billion mixture. Now we'll be releasing mixture expert for lots of agriculture, finance, domains which only present, not only models, marks. And that's inclusivity, right? This is inclusivity of domains, and which also reflect how good the model is, which again need to come from India. That was a glimpse, but basically this, right? We want to ensure that the use case is often associated with India is turned into product generation. And this is again opportunity. Some say we are not at all late. We are what we are. And we are working 24/7. And the other important part is many areas need air-gapped large language. So therefore, the more we are able to build, obviously, for many, understand the model, have open source models out, went into building those models for a retrieval augmented RAG, as they say, right? The whole idea of the right-hand side privacy, on the that's on the left-hand side, on the right-hand, cultural preservation, inclusion in hand. So how did we begin? Initial Department of Science and Technology, when they funded 235 crores, and they're still going. During the we launched initial billion. Thereafter, 7 mixture of expert models, also text to speech. Earlier 9 languages, now 12 languages. And along with Patram, which is India's first vision language document model, 7 billion, trained on 2.5 billion tokens. And as I said, the teams, we've been able to get good people, not only from the US, but also in India. TCS, several have actually joined forces. People from multinationals, of course, the is a lot more, and we want to spread more and more across India. Just we are kind of limited by our leadership of people, so it requires us to augment our leadership significantly more. From 50, we need to go to 100. So as I said, the India mission decided that this is good progress. They decided, and we made to build up to 1 trillion parameter model. Now it's building large models like 1 trillion parameters is really not for ordinary deployment. It's like setting up the highway in a country, right? You set up highways and you can have national highway, then state highways can fork off from that, which could be based on distilling from that, right? And with large models, you get what we call the capability. There's an inflection point beyond which you see that agentic capability to even serve the small models, right? Of course, a QR code is there. You're welcome. I put it up front so that anyone wants to express interest, you can please scan it and feel free. The urgency, of course, goes beyond just, as I said, building models to the. So that's why this comes in. So we have to create this virtuous cycle. Data coming back to models is the virtuous cycle. But to do that, we also need to show capability in deployments. So the first is explainability as a scientific first class goal. It's basically recipes and benchmarks. I give you a glimpse, a little bit more I'll provide. And that also we keep documenting. We have milestones in the form of it's open source code. If you go to ML efficiency for large models at decile.org, you'll find a lot of publications, code that we also put out, recipes we put out. And the second is efficiency research. And all of us know models are not sustainable. Inference is not even scale in India. We don't have the infra, right? So therefore, how do you make efficiency possible? That takes us to the third goal. How do you have models as first-class citizens? And we have a book called Samanvay, very happy, come out from the consortium. And then back to data, right? How do you get data efficiency and plow that back into the first pillar, which is explainability, recipes as the first. Now, to build this provenance-aware auditable AI, the first thing obviously is benchmarks. So when we built out the 2.9 billion parameter model, the first thing we did was, okay, how does it perform? Do we need to add more benchmarks? And you can see we were rows are basically different models in the same league of parameters, and the columns are about different benchmarks in different languages. Our first model was just 2.9 billion dense model for Hindi and English. Now I want a story with the vision language model. Observed is that we were actually doing surprisingly very well on two well-known benchmarks. Document vision model. The benchmarks are basically and visual, right? And that we actually wanted to. Why are you doing so well? Because China, when if you have looked at a little bit of the ecosystem there, they've been getting everything from and done this for decades possibly. How can we be better than them? And then we took an adversarial role and we realized that this DocVQA is actually fairly simple benchmark for documents. Okay, so instead of patting ourselves in the back, we became our own adversaries, released another benchmark, which is a Patram bench, which is, I think, a healthy practice. As I said, a lot of it is documented. There are lots of applications on top, which I've also listed on the slide. And then this is a glimpse of automatic speech recognition, and I'll tell more about how we do this. But again, publicly, we've been very good on Hindi. In fact, across multiple benchmarks, across different dialects, variants of Hindi, the entire belt across the north. And these are basically word error rate, the better, unlike. And this continues for multiple Indian languages, which I won't get into. The other important part is how did we build a data set? So actually, the ecosystem also means you help you grow. We worked with 5 vendors, speech data vendors, who were getting PIN code data. And what we realized is, intentionally or unintentionally, duplication of data across the vendors. Sometimes the same data is getting repurposed with two metadata files. The sampling rate is incorrect. Whole bunch of things, right? I mean, let's say everyone had good intentions. We need to build capacity so that and happen, right? So this led to a very robust, what we call work for ensuring good data. And we pushed it back to the 5 vendors while we built a 13,000 hours of speech data collection across 11 Indian languages. And the foundational models, base models, are basically the catalyst for better transparency and visibility so that we can actually build tuned models more effectively. The tuned models in turn feed into frameworks, right? Frameworks, for example, could be WhatsApp, to applications where you start looking at legal and so on. A lot of the done by application engineering. The story, right? How we got some.
क्या आप बता सकते हैं आपके प्याज की किस्म कौन सी है और आपने फसल कब काटी थी? प्याज को ठंडी और हवादार जगह में रखें जहां तापमान 25 सेल्सियस और नमी 65 से 70 हो।
So the entire is integrated into a WhatsApp, to a number. And this was built with Indian Council for Agriculture Research, high fidelity question answering, multi-turn for agriculture, for crop information, which integrates, of course, multiple modalities, speech to text, text to speech across multiple voices, and also ensuring that we get the document language models information from documents in a very, I would say, decentralized manner. This can be deployed anywhere. And we keep publishing. That's another very important thing, right? The reason we have a research ecosystem is because research will help you bring not only transparency, but also efficiency. Another example from NACL 2025, where we released this entire benchmark of question answering data sets across 12. We just didn't do only benchmarks. We also alignment the different question answer so that these are not diverse, right? There's some alignment. And a whole quality assurance is also been part of the text stack. And then what does it take to build these 1 trillion parameters? This is what the India mission announced for BharatJan, right? So I'm just what that means. So let's start with the architecture, right? So for small models to large models are going to basically mean a lot many more experts, right? That you need to collaborate. So basically we're looking at 1 trillion total parameters, 48 trillion tokens. So we already right now almost reached 20 plus trillion tokens. We need to get to 48 trillion tokens, including, of course, 22 Indian languages, which we have already released, getting to 64 plus programming languages. All our models are on Hugging Face and AI Coach. Whatever we release on Hugging Face and AI Coach. And as I said, the large models are largely to ensure that there is tool calling so that we can have dynamic scalability. And we can do distillation into small models as well. So let's take an example of what these agentic models do.
डॉक्टर के आशंका बाकी हार्ट में कोनो ब्लॉकेज न हो यही खातिर हमके
So LLM powering it, you'll get angiography despite the background noise, despite the fact that it's Bhojpuri, right? So context matters. Here's an example where you see text to speech benefit.
अभिनंदन आपणकर ऋण अनुमोदन होइछि ଅଭିନନ୍ଦନ ଆପଣଙ୍କ ଋଣ ଅନୁମୋଦନ ହୋଇଛି।
So emotion comes from context. So I must tell you that it is not one size fits all. What we also do is for every task try and have an option of models, because as they say, there's no free lunch. You can get a lot of sophistication, right? Sentiments in the speech, but it'll come at the cost of some compute. Now you can choose, and that's the whole idea, having multiple alternatives from where you can choose the most appropriate model. And here's an end-to-end speech system.
నాకు రేపటిలోగా డెలివరీ కావాలి, ఇది అత్యవసరం.
ఎల్లుండి మీరు డెలివరీ ద్వారా దాన్ని పొందుతారు. మీరు ఎక్స్ప్రెస్ డెలివరీని
So this is the potential models which are end-to-end. A little bit about efficiency and research. I know we have to show on this plot is basically what to get from quadratic to almost research problems that we are research. Right? How do you look at emergence of skills? How respect to task? Can you bring sparser models? Can we create neural rather than just grid search, right? And interesting problems associated with what we call subset selection. And yes, a simple example, right? To be lit up, right? We need some bulbs on, but which? Well, one consideration could be based on density of occupation, right? You want to make sure that everything is covered, every place is covered, right? That's an example of coverage problem, right? So you want a subset that has good coverage, subset of lights. But you may say, well, some seats may not be. I need to turn those on, keep them on in anticipation diversity problem. Maybe there are languages like Manipuri which don't have enough benchmarks, but does that mean we don't include them in the training process? We must. So diversity matters there, right? A third is information, right? See, very less data in particular domain, but it's possible that the Manipuri dialect is not very different from some of the neighboring states, especially vocabulary, right? So can I have information, right? That the information from an Assamese benchmark trickle down into the data selection for Manipuri, right? To get more Manipuri Assamese data. Publications in this space, how to use information functions to better select a subset of points. And finally is representation. Maybe this room is full of people behind us sleeping, right? You may want to actually turn on the lights there in their interest and in the interest of the electricity consumption, right? So that is where you're basically using representation, features to determine what data points to select and what. And the bulbs are basically data points. You can have hard selection, right? So, I mean, we brought out this open source platform called Decile, which stands for Data Efficient Learning. Again, diverse representation is important. How do you find the right trade-off between them? So there's this entire class modeler functions, right? And very nice algorithms with good approximation guarantees, but there are also very interesting engineering tricks that efficient, right? The solving. There are associated many other modules. I've just listed some publications from these. We had a very recent series of publications also coming out from what we call core sets. Core sets is basically subset selection with weights. But I'll not get into the details here. There's enough, right, to read up if you're interested. This was a NeurIF 25 paper. Very interesting. Like if you're training a large language model, the initial stages of the model, you might actually want to expose the model to diversity, right? You want to make sure Manipuri and all languages are there. But as you proceed to the border, you may realize that some languages are underrepresented and they are better covered by having more instances from other, right? So, yeah, just go to, thank you. So this is probably a very important slide, right? Half of the work is obviously ML, but there's a lot of work that is also done by domain knowledge. And I draw your attention to this book, someone where we talk about how by exploiting linguistic similarities of Indian languages, you can do a lot better. And here's a sentence, Kolkata sthit Kali Maa ka prasiddh mandir bahut hi bhavya hai. And if you were to render the dependency structure for the sentence rendered in Sanskrit, Malayalam, Kannada, and Hindi with what we call word grouping. And this is a lot inspired by Panini, with basically three classes of words, which is Kridanta, Subanta, and Tiganta broadly. And you can see that the graphs have amazing isomorphism. Do you see all the A, E just look exactly the same? As against D, when you look at Hindi from a different point of view. I mean, English is largely subject, verb, object. And Indian languages have a subject, object, verb structure. And that's basically reflecting even in complex sentences. I'm going to conclude with this last example. Very recently published. I talked about the text, right? What we did was speech encoder, a text LLM for decoding, and brought in a mixture of experts for projecting from speech to text, right? And what is the similarity, the way it exhibits along the each responds to a language. For example, the left top is Hindi, the right Marathi, then on the left bottom is Telugu. And what you see is basically lighter is the allegiance of a particular to a particular task. For do you all see that Hindi and Marathi looks exactly the same? This is basically discovered by the model. Now imagine I also use by prior the fact that there's one label set, right? The model can improve significantly. That's what we're doing. And you can see that Telugu borrows from both Tamil as well as, again, intuitive. Okay, so this gives recipes of how you can use a balance of prior knowledge and statistics for effectively. We have done some data generation, brought in human-driven world knowledge into data generation as well. 25 paper. We don't have time. This you want it, right? But as deep. So we'll ecosystem of the country if we want to go a long way in this. Thank you very much. Grateful for this. So as a chairperson, I would like to invite next Professor Shyam Rath, member AICD, to share a few words. Please come.
So you're requesting Professor of the All Technical Education. He is a distinguished academic with extensive international collaborations with institutions in the UK. Mayank Dhingra, who has joined us virtually, is Director of Education, Business and Strategy at HP Inc. He leads HP's initiatives across over 150 countries, working closely with ministries on policy, capacity building, and AI-enabled edtech solutions. We also have Dr. Special Director General at the Bhaskaracharya National Institute for Space Applications and Geophysics by ZEG-N under the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. He has been a key architect of India's digital public infrastructure. These include platforms such as DigiLocker, GEM, initiatives in GIS, cybersecurity, post-quantum, satellite-based, and national programs like PM Gati Shakti. I also are Arora at CDAC and a leading speech and natural language. He has research contributions, speech and tech for Bhashini mission. His contributions to language technology I request Ganesh Ramakrishna Rao to take the roundtable discussion. Thank you.
Am I audible? So thank you. Welcome all. I would like to request each of the throw some light on the topic of the inclusive, not only on AI for bridging education of AI. I mean, that's the whole spirit, right? We don't want just AI for education, but education of AI. We want for consuming AI.
Education of I have been invited to functions to learn, always to preach. And I think that category will read them out about AI employability. Before I come to that, I think my evening is made because I listened to your talk, because I've been following it very closely and looking at how you are reaching out. Actually, inclusivity, you are including. Thank you. When I looked at some statistics, the jobs in India are projected to see rapid growth. New opening 27 and 2.73 million by 2028. And this is a report by study by Bain and Company, and I saw it in the Economic Times 25. Similarly, Business Standard also similar report. So with this, we are also saying that we have the largest talent pool of AI researchers. And as per the Stanford AI Index, India ranks for AI skill penetration, which is ahead of US and Germany. And this is telling us that the talent concentration has grown by 263% since 2016, and which positions India as a major AI hub. Very interesting statistic is that India leads in AI skill penetration for women, surpassing both US and Israel. So with this, I think that gives me a case to understand AI. And of course, I think we will.
Thank you, Professor Shah. Live that I was with Jan, and he said advantage that people scared of AI. And to our advantage because while adopting AI could also discover new skills. That's another point you made. Can we find skills which are modern knowledge in more than lazy manners? that is. Thank you. Throw some light on this topic.
So, but then a little bit on what is, though Professor has already told a lot of things in his components around provide the GPU to academy to see that probably we feel that around 80 to 85 can be done by small language. Different sectors. So that is India AI foundational model and with number of startups at IITs, and Socket and so many things. AI Kosha is the data sets, database which has been created by the government around different databases from different departments and make different parameters for data for different, for training the data. Then we are also working on number of applications in different areas of agriculture, health, and then different startups and industry partners have been given that work so that they can develop the solutions related to different. Another one, and India AI future skill is handy for education. We are funding the students who are doing AI projects at BTech level, MTech level, and then around PhDs, 500 PhDs, AI that the fellowship will be given by under India. Projects around AI where we have selected around 8 big projects to start with, given to different startups and IITs and NITs where we are working very closely with them. And then startup where we want to create a pool of everybody can work with us at we work the model, but also for the world. Coming back to education, which is very, very important, I'll tell you a scenario. In 2008, I visited few schools in Northeast, and then in the schools, students, there were no science student, and then when we checked that why science students are not there, one, the teachers were not there, and whosoever was there were unable to probably teach them science, and that is how they opted out of science. So AI probably can be very, very big enabler in education, starting from one, that it can bridge the divide. That is very, very important. And then to see that we have an adaptive type of learning. So AI can play a very important role where the very good content can be created, individual students probably can be tested, and then their strengths and weaknesses can be matched. So that is one thing where we need to work very, very closely with. I'll tell you when on computerization in early 90s or late 80s, struggling with the solution for Indian languages. We had ASCII, which was American code for information solution that is how it was. But then now we develop a model together. And now Bhashni has evolved in such a manner that text low bandwidth, switching to which lowest of bandwidth can provide better. There is a lot of scope for AI to be used in education to see that we can bring about.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vinay Thakur. I think you've thrown light on a couple of important things, the skilling initiatives, and Bhashini is keep working very closely with Bhashini, which you, I think, very rightfully pointed out, is working with startups and throwing open the opportunities. That's a big hunger in India. And thank through initiatives like what you mentioned. Thank you. Aranesh Arora.
Talk about the inclusivity. It considers various factors. In the open and distance education, there is a diversity of learners, age-related diversity, language diversity. So to have which, and then can we expect that learning level achievement is the same? answer is no. So it has to be, we have to include everyone. We can not leave anyone behind. Different ways of including them is like the efforts of Bhashani, considering the different systems. So this also demands that we need to have the large language models or 5G expected. So other development like small language models and offline first models innovation. So because I called is the excellence. The things differently. That plays quite important role, and it becomes in terms of the inclusive. That's all.
Thank you, Dr. Karunesh. You actually stole some of my words. This is meaning itself by calling things as jugaad. Stop using the word jugaad. Why jugaad, right? Science. I love that point. And the fact that gave OpenAI a run for their money. I mean, and India through UPI, when I have to carry 3 credit cards, it's a nightmare. And you can see what UPI has done for India. That's so much scientific thinking, systems thinking here. Wonderful. I would Mike, please to chime in if you want to.
Thank you, Professor Ganesh, and a very good evening to all the distinguished panelists and the esteemed guests. I have a fair amount of lag, I think, between our connections, so I'm going to share my screen, and I hope it works well.
Yeah.
Give me one second. So it was great to hear some of the, actual case studies and use cases that have been happening in India. And I wanted to, talk a little bit about the ability to bridge the educational divide through AI, but using the context of what we have been doing in HP in terms of the work around AI and future of work. I think, we all probably agree that the future of work is going to be dictated by some advanced technologies. We are today in the era of ANI, which is artificial narrow intelligence. We are probably heading towards AGI, artificial general intelligence, and very soon we would probably be in the era of ASI, which is artificial super intelligence. So we know that, a lot of this is going to dictate our near future. And there are a lot of new work styles coming up, from gig economies to freelancing, and some of our panelists as well spoke about that or alluded to that. So while these external factors are,
please go ahead. Maybe
sorry, were you able to hear me well, or were you saying something, Professor?
The screen appears blank. There seems to be only some text.
Yeah, it's coming up. So the screen is going to keep coming up as I talk through it. So, the future of work, like I said, is going to be dictated by some advanced technologies and some employee expectations and new work styles. But also internally, there is going to be a lot of conditionality based on how an organization has its own relationships, manages its culture, and so on. But the underpinning thing that we all are going to face is skills development and a cloud architecture. Both of these things are going to really dictate what's going to happen in the era of AI and in the future of work. So as HP, we have been working a lot to make sure that we are working with governments on the capacity building side, especially around AI, and also working on solutions and products which have AI infused at the device level. Because in the end, I think if we want to prepare students to be the workforce of tomorrow, we have to make sure they are AI and technology fluent. I'll use again, just some examples of what we are doing from a capacity building perspective. But what we have done is really created a scaffolding which looks across students, educators, leaders, and thought leadership. And I can see that the screen is probably still lagging, so I'm not sure at what stage the frame is showing. But there are a plethora of programs that we have created that are AI enabled and allow for AI to actually be incorporated into skilling for students, educators, and policymakers. I'll use just 3-4 of these programs as examples of what we are doing to bridge the divide. Now, HP IDEA is a program which stands for Innovation and Digital Education Academy. We've run this for CBSE schools in India, but equally we have run this in 35 other countries with ministries of education. And what we essentially do with this program is make sure that teachers go on a fellowship track with us using frameworks that we have from Harvard University and University of Michigan. And that allows us to really integrate AI into the classroom. So we use AI tools, we use the ethical guidance tools by UNESCO, and allow teachers to really become comfortable by allowing them to understand AI and its implementation in the classroom, because they are not native digital, but you allow them to actually understand AI better and therefore equip their students much better with that. We run a fair amount of webinars which allows teachers to understand how to catalyze innovation in the classroom with AI, how to unlock neurodiversity as an example through AI tools. So there's so much that can be done in terms of bridging every kind of divide, right? From a neurodiversity point of view to just the technology point of view. Our impact on this has been over 1.5 million students and 70,000 teachers. We also run a program similarly for policymakers with Cambridge University. And that program actually takes policymakers on a triple curriculum of EdTech, policy, and leadership. Because today, understanding EdTech and AI is one aspect, but understanding how to build policy around that is the most important thing for policymakers. And then personal leadership, how do you create a coalition of change and really drive national transformation at scale using AI and EdTech tools? So this program has now seen policymakers from 50 countries, including 7 from India, go on the program. And our impact on this has been about 5.6 million students and teachers just in the first year. It's climbing to about 11 million in the second year. So, we talked about what we're doing for teachers. We talked about what we're doing for policymakers. We similarly are enabling students as well through a medium that they understand and enjoy, which is gaming, right? So through the HP Gaming Garage program that we have created, we are actually allowing students to take on courses which enable them to understand management, design, programming, but more importantly, generative AI and cybersecurity, two of the most important technologies in today's environment. I'll just use the coursework on generative AI as an example. We've got a complete stack of about 16 modules, which shows how you can use AI in terms of generative AI tools to accelerate anything in the media, ICT, and gaming industry. Because today, game engines are powering everything from architectural firms to automobile companies. So understanding how to use AI in game engines is probably one of the most important skills that anybody can have in the media or ICT industry. Today, students from India are actually the number one in terms of enrollments across the globe, and we have students from 200 countries. So, this is a very important metric to show the sort of hunger that is there in India for understanding AI at the student level, and the acceptance and adoption of that is, far ahead of many other countries. This is as well a program which has been awarded as the best CSR program because we enable this free of charge and allow AI skilling for students completely, at no cost. We also run a think tank called HP Futures, and that actually looks at what can be done in the intersection of AI and education. And we look at it from 3 angles. So we look at it from the AI and student angle, student and AI and educator angle, and AI and policymaker angle. And we brought together 100 thought leaders on this process. Their contributions together have enabled us to answer some of the key questions of how to use AI to bridge digital divide, right? So what skills are needed for the future of work? How do you reduce teacher workload as an example? How do you create equitable access and ethical implementation of AI technologies? What frameworks and policies are needed to guide AI adoption? So a lot of these very important questions have been answered, including taking the wisdom of 2,800 students across 21 countries, then looking at 1.7 million educators in Brazil as a focus group, and we took their insights, and then we looked in the school leaders around Illinois State and used their feedback as well. So across students, policymakers, school leaders, and teachers, we distilled their wisdom to really create some absolute imperative, recommendations on how to bring AI into creating more equity within the education system. So I won't read out each of these, but you can see that some of these are very, very important, including, for example, the last one which says that you need to keep friction as well still in the classroom, right? Because the danger also is that while you're trying to create equity, you might create AI atrophy, right? Which is that everybody becomes lazy because of the level of AI that comes into the classroom. So we've addressed some very fundamental questions, around students and what they want to learn about through AI, how they worry about the AI's capabilities, and so therefore equity is very important in that context. What do students feel about their future in terms of jobs because of AI? So some very fundamental questions are being answered through this work that we have done, including creating frameworks on how to bring AI into the classroom and how to use an AI assessment scale in understanding when to use how much of AI in which task in a classroom. So across, this report is freely available for everybody. They can download it through our website, HP Futures. But I think I'll leave you finally with our last tool, which is, an AI-powered LMS. And I'll use the example of what we're doing in Thailand with the Ministry of Education. So, very contextual to Global South. I'll play this and hopefully it will run seamlessly despite the connection.
In the vibrant heart of Thailand, a country rich in culture and deeply committed to education, a new era begins. Classera is writing a new chapter of innovation, in collaborating with the Ministry of Education and HP through HP Classezi, a learning management system transforming the educational landscape with AI, advanced technologies, gamification, personalization to redefine learning experiences, aligning with the Ministry of Education's vision of integrated technology.
เทคโนโลยีสารสนเทศที่ทันสมัยซึ่งเป็นนโยบายของกระทรวงศึกษาธิการโดยระบบจะช่วยติดตามผลการเรียนพัฒนาบทบาทการสอนความสามารถของครูผู้สอนมีการนำแพลตฟอร์มเทคโนโลยีมาใช้บริการร่วมกับการเรียนการสอนในห้องเรียนให้เป็นห้องเรียนอัจฉริยะและเกิดประโยชน์ต่อสถานศึกษา
HP Classezi powered by Classera introduces advanced AI features with Xera, a powerful AI assistant that can be trained, customized, and adapted to generate content, exams, lectures, interactive videos, and personalized learning paths.
ต้องยอมรับเลยนะครับว่า HP Classezi เนี่ยเป็นประโยชน์สำหรับโรงเรียนนะครับอย่างมากเลยนะ
Mayank, may I request you to
กิจกรรมการเรียนการสอนของคุณครูกับนัก
Yeah.
Let me stop so that I can hear you well.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayank. I think it was very interesting to hear the other aspects of education, which are, of course, persona, strata. You talked about stratified learning, and also you brought this perspective of lifelong learning. This leads me to the next question. I think we talked a lot about education. I talked about this phenomenon of diminishing returns, right? Models exhibit diminishing returns. You keep throwing more data beyond a point, the model is not learning, right? We all experience diminishing returns in our life, in our meals. If you have 5 rasgullas, the 6th rasgulla is a strict no-no for you. That's diminishing returns. So you can keep throwing content, make them customized. That's great. But how do you appetize the learning, right? I think there's a very important counterpart, which is learning. I was in a panel discussion with Mighty Secretary, Mr. Krishna, earlier today, and he really talked about the fact that the increasing amount of addiction that is also resulting in lack of creative impetus. Hinted to that, but obviously we need to address that. And he quoted a very beautiful point from Vishnu Sahasranam. I just loved it, right? So Lord Vishnu, he He can create, but he can also destroy, right? So, I mean, AI has that power. So how do you ensure that we use AI in a constructive manner and in a way that complements learning? I think learning in an inclusive manner. May I request each panelist to shed some light on that?
So Ganesh, would you want somebody in particular to start? Because
I'm requesting Professor Sharma to get started here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so about learning, now this brings me to the title of an article I read someone a few days back. Can chatbots and chalkboards become pals in a classroom? So this is again, on one hand, we have these insecurity, teachers face this, that, oh, students have, they are into plagiarism, they know they can, the answers, they know the answers, everything is done through AI. That's one aspect. But is it also because teachers are resistant to learning? Students maybe are much quicker learners today and more ready to adapt. So that is one this thing. And when you talked about learning, I wanted to touch one aspect. We are, of course, a very heterogeneous society. We have, urban poor, this thing, divide, rich poor. We have urban, rural, everything. When you talk about learning now, when we think, have any of you seen how your domestic helps have taken to AI? The school dropouts, most of them, they're school dropouts, but I think AI has really helped them learn. I see it in my house. The other day, I was showing my help. He wanted some medicine. I said, ye hai dawai. So all the fine print medicines you're not able to see. Then he came up with a whole list of things that this medicine can create wonders. I said, how do you know all this? आपको पता नहीं है, आपने जेमिनाई के बारे में नहीं सुना है? I was really impressed, and every day he brings back to me new stories. That's one thing. When you talked about learning, I think we should focus. You did talk about speech to text and text to speech. And when we talk about people with special needs, and that is where we need our homegrown AI. Because again, you need to learn in the mother tongue. They need to be instructed in the mother tongue. Then there is a whole range of disorders. When we talk of special needs, you talked about speech to text. We can have autism spectrum disorder. So how do they adapt socially? How do they learn new things? The other part is also about ADHD. I think AI with the gaming and all helps attention span. I think part of those who are in this field, research, can focus on those aspects also. So that is where I feel, and again, women in AI, when we are talking about inclusivity, I think there's this Yashoda AI scheme by the government. And really, when you go to rural areas, I'm from Odisha and I travel, you really see the penetration there, particularly among those who have had to drop out of education.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Very interesting. You brought back memories to one of my earlier classes. In a machine learning class, I had adopted this process called think, pair, and share. So instead of everything being taught, the students were brought together either in pairs or triplets, and they had to think, reflect on a concept being taught, pair up, and share. Now, I'm actually thinking that AI has added one more member to each team, right? So you could collaborate with 2, you could collaborate with 3 now, right? I think that collaborative capability that people have in India is also expanded to AI. It's a superb observation. And in one sense, that has empowered people who otherwise didn't know whom to pair. as long as it's used as a pair and not as a master, right? Thank you. I would like to request Dr. Vinay Thakur to share his thoughts on this.
Uh, I feel that real use of AI is yet to come. We are still struggling with a lot of things around learning, and then even within the government. We struggle to operate our application softwares made for different people, try making videos, trying them help to use them. So probably AI is definitely going to help, but then that is going to take some time. Creating best of the content, animated content, seeing to it that the content is available anytime, anywhere. We have seen when we were studying, we were doing PhD, we have to attend classes now. The classes are through NPTEL, and then probably you go through it and then study something. So somewhere we have to see one, that learning definitely has to be made better. Content has to be improvised. But at the same time, we have to see that how this can be done in much better manner. How AI is going to help out in assessing the individual strength of the students, building the system, building the content as per their strengths, making assessments made easy, and then seeing to it that everything reaches to them and help them in growing, and then adapting the systems and making the things better for them. So AI definitely is going to be a assistive thing, not going to be probably replacing anything. So learning and probably AI has going to be matched properly in order to serve the things better.
Thank you. That was very interesting. So, Dr. Vinay, you have talked about the fact that there's a lot to be accomplished with use of AI. And this brings to my mind the fact that there's no one size fits all, right? I think you give examples where you can enhance. So that is a enhancement to me is more of supplementary, right? So somebody already knows you're enhancing. There are places where you could complement. I lack something, so I'm actually bringing that, not just to enhance, but to fill in a lacuna, right? I mean, for example, I may know 5 steps of a derivation. The 6th step I've forgotten. That's a very complementary use case. And I think, as Madam, you pointed out earlier, there are substitutional use cases where you don't have access to anyone at all, right? So I think just understanding different genre of use cases so that we don't put a square peg in a round hole, I think that's a very important takeaway from you, from what you said. So Dr. Karunesh, what are your thoughts?
When we talk about the how does it impact learning, so it's a two-sided sword. Like how it depends on how do we use it. The same knife can be used to cut the vegetable, and same knife for the wrong purposes. So how intelligently we make use of that, and we need to teach the students and learners that they don't become the consumers, just consumer. It's not the content transfer from one area to the head. It has to develop the thinking. Critical thinking has to be developed. So I advocate the concept of the Socratic AI. So which doesn't reply you directly, but poses some questions or some hints so that you try to answer, and it tries to build you the skills to learn the concepts and understand the thing better. So that way, I think AI can play a role, but it has to be used judiciously, and persons have to be taught that how they make use of it. They don't become too much dependent. Otherwise, like as we say that when these machines were not there, when the cars were not there, we were walking a lot and our muscles were not depleting. It has the wrong effect of that. Same can be become on the mental side also. Yes, but it depends how do we make use of that. How do we consume? Are we directly consumer, or we are just prompting to answer, and how do we question that? And there is a called of and we cannot directly trust the information which is just thrown to us. So one needs to be taught, that it is to be verified. So there comes the question of, there comes the aspect of the responsible AI. So, and feeling that this need, now the generative AI solutions, they have also provided reference anchors to confirm that from where this information is generated from. So we need to teach the students that they verify also. How many of us that click that link to verify whether it's coming from the right source or not, whether the information which is being served to me, it's in the right manner or not. So we need to inculcate those habits, asking the questions, making the critical thinking, and only then it can be phase-wise learning.
Thank you. Very interesting. I think the framework you talked about, or paradigm, Socratic AI, I think probably holds for everyone. For as a teacher, also I need to be Socratic teacher. As a gentle reminder, as a parent, I need to, and I would actually use Upanishadic instead of Socratic, because I think our Upanishads have exactly this methodology. You don't give answers, but you lead, right? And the conversational style in Upanishads are actually mind-boggling. They just get into depths of topics and let people, right, lead people. So I probably need to be also an Upanishadic parent, right? And I think if we adopt these paradigms in our life, we'll probably lead to better Upanishadic AI as well. Thank you. Very interesting. Mayank, what are your thoughts?
Professor Ganesh, I think, you led with mythology, so maybe I answer with that to start with. You said that, Lord Vishnu can both create and destruct. And, between creation and destruction, there is 100 Brahma years of sleep, absolute sleep, right? Of nothingness. And then the world again sprouts from Vishnu's navel and the lotus is born and so on. But I think that pause is very important, right? And that's the pause we need to stay with, because very much like the earlier panelists said, right? Can you stay in the question a little longer? And when you stay in the question a little longer, you probably start finding the answers that you need to find, which is how do you deal with AI and how do you make it far more effective in the classroom or in general life. I think as machines are taking over more of our life, and as we start living in the phygital environment, right, the physical and the digital merging into each other, we need to go back to the humanness of what makes us different. And therefore, I think technology competence is just going to become a hygiene factor, right? Understanding AI, understanding the cyber security space, because as much as physical security was a consideration in the current era, cybersecurity is going to be a consideration in the coming era. But more importantly, the ability to look around the bend, right? It's called perceptual acuity. The ability to have perceptual acuity and look around the bend and say, how do I harness this technology to the betterment of society, to the betterment of my organization, to the betterment of my own household, right? Those are the things that we'll need to wrestle with. And equally, cognition capacity is going to become important, right? The ability to be creative, the ability to be a lifelong learner, the ability to have critical thinking and really differentiate and make the right choices in a situation. So all of those are going to start becoming important. Equally, social emotional intelligence, right? So the ability to understand ourselves and therefore the ability to understand others, and then how do you collaborate and create far more better outcomes for yourself and for the world. And most importantly, we are this one planet, right? So planet custodianship is going to become important, right? How do you preserve culture? We are talking right now about our culture, Indian culture. How do you preserve that, right? How do you preserve Mother Earth? And really, how do you create equity overall for everybody? So all of these questions are going to become as important as understanding AI. And when we supplement and complement that, I think we'll have the right answers for ourselves.
Thank you. Again, you brought in a very interesting aspect that this needs to scale as well. I think while we can talk about prototypes, both longitudinally across a person's life, and I think that's some of the longitudinal aspect you brought in terms of profiling, as well as in terms of the population, the genre, different genre being covered. And just to kind of conclude with my own thoughts here, I think the more we learn to become producers, I think the more there will be appetite. The more we get into a consumer lifestyle, whether it is AI or anything else that comes in the future, I think the more we'll dabble with this problem of download and loss of appetite. So my take is creative energy will come when we actually become creators. Right? We need to think of how we become at every step. And that's where sovereignty is, as In Arthashastra, Chanakya talks about the fact that sovereignty is about how we make sure that everyone is satisfied, everyone feels connected, not just as a consumer, but through a deep relationship of co-creation. That's my take on this. Thank you very much. Really appreciate, I wish we could go on and on, but this was an exciting panel discussion. Very grateful that we got this opportunity. Thanks to all the panelists.
Thank you so much. We also wish you could go on and on. We are also enjoying a lot and learning a lot. Thank you for such an insightful discussion. Now I request Professor Pema Eden Sumdup, Director International Division, IGNOU, to coordinate the open discussion and invite the participants to share their views.
Good evening. This session has brought together a very, very exceptional panel because we have policymakers, AICTE there, we have the industry, and we also have what is also called national digital infrastructure. So they were all here today, and of course our esteemed chair. Now they have shared their experiences and their perspectives with us, which will hopefully lead us to reflect on how we can AI can help support inclusive learner journeys, enable resilient type of education systems, and ensure that technology progress does not actually make the divides wider. Now that I've been given this opportunity, and I do have questions, but I think we will open it up to the floor since they didn't get a chance to ask questions earlier. Anybody? Please identify yourself.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Professor Dhanesh Khatri from School of Management, IGNOU. See, I really enjoyed it. Really enlightening things were there. My one thing is there, generally in our face-to-face classes, because I come from the face-to-face classes, till 24 I was in face-to-face classes, we have a social and human connect. So how can we bring social and human connect in ODDE? That's my question. Thank you.
Would anybody like to take it?
Yeah, I think Professor Kanjilal would be a better person to answer that. But you see, the human connect and all, like he's talking about teamwork. Yeah, I mean, even when you are learning in online distance education, you are still collaborating. You are collaborating with colleagues. In classrooms, like you correctly said, the face-to-face. But then at the same time, if you gradually think, in the face-to-face now, a lot of teachers, we have this, that the conventional thing is that the teacher should preach and the student should be listening to you. And some of us get offended when students don't attend classes. But the alternate model in ODDE, I think it's more personalized and customized learning. It is not taking away the connect. It's more like there's more flexibility in the way we learn and even the way we deliver education, but more importantly for the learners. Many of them now, when they're balancing multiple things, you might say, okay, the classroom, they are not connecting, but whatever they have imbibed during that session, they're probably then going somewhere else and connecting whatever they have learned and getting into discussions on that. And that we do see happening very often.
Face-to-face things, I don't think that is going to be totally eliminated. It's going to stay there. The things, the content, the AI is going to supplement it. That's what we feel. There could be a better content. There could be better ways of teaching which can come and support it through technology. But face-to-face, even Professor in earlier discussion was saying, people, and during COVID also we have seen, and then we have reverted back to face-to-face type of education, offices and everything. So I don't think that is going to, the things, technology is going to further supplement, help and grow the things in a better manner. So that's what we feel.
If I can be allowed to add here, I think the answer is. I think the answer is neither
Could we take one
black
or two
or.
more questions just so that audience has more?
May I? May I ask the question?
Yeah, mine, go ahead.
Yes. So good evening all. Myself, I am Professor Pallavi from Ambedkar Open University. I'm coordinator for skill development and vocational training as well. So thank you all for your inputs for this session on the AI for bridging the educational divide we are talking about. But I have a very fundamental question, sir. Do we think that AI will bridge the educational divide or it will widen it? Because the technologies are changing, softwares are changing, and the private entities are racing for it. But whereas the public institutions, we are still struggling for the basic facilities, whether it is school, college, or university. My daughter, she studies in international school, and they have a lot of AI, into their curriculum. But whereas a government school in the neighborhood, they do not even have the desktops in the schools. That is one thing. And even in universities, just now in the prior session, we talked about the capacity building of the teachers. Everything has a cost. So now where do we meet from? Like most of us are from the public institutions. So does AI-driven education is bridging the educational divide, or probably it might lead to the more widening? So that is my questions. Thank you.
Mayank, would you like to get started on both questions?
I think it's a question that everybody is wrestling with, and I don't think there are any easy answers. But to the earlier point made by the panelists, the same knife can either cut, or the same knife can either be a creator of a dish. So very much similarly, I think the divide is already there. You could make AI the villain of the piece, but I don't think AI would be the villain of the piece. You could use it to actually create equity. You could use any other technology to create equity as well. Today, if you use artificial, we're talking about AI, but if you talk about AR, augmented reality, that creates so much more immersive engagement. It allows a lot of things that might not be possible in a different environment to be possible in a virtual environment, like dissecting a human body or visiting the best museums in the world. So I think it's about utilizing the tool, and how you utilize the tool that will either create divide or create equity. So yes, there are no perfect answers, there's no perfect world, but it's about creating the right intent. It's about creating the charter for education and AI in education, and then making sure it's implemented effectively.
Thank you, Mayank. There's another a couple more. But
can I
please keep your questions very, very brief. We are running.
In fact, in the context of ODL system, when we heavily rely that we consider that our textbooks are teacher in print, and maybe with the advent of AI, it will be like virtual teacher in addition to the teacher in print. We have a cultural diversity across a country when you look at the ethnicity as well as the languages. When the local dialects, it changes, I think, within 50 kilometers or 100 kilometers. If you, even within a state, you will find so many, you have already, Professor Ganesh has already, you're working on it. So if in the context of, say, cognitive, psychomotor, and affective domains, while cognitive, definitely you can do it. Psychomotor also, something is being done, but in ODL system, it is practically very difficult when you don't have any, hand tied or hand devices. In the affective domains, how do you, try to handle this cross-cultural, problem that we have, or the local dialects that we have? Because especially in languages where reading, writing, and listening skills are very important. So, whether you are already working on it, or how do you tackle this challenge?
Answer to this question is related to the inclusivity. That what the question is like, whether we are covering all the dialects. So the attempt is towards that. Bhashani and Bharat Jain initiatives are towards reaching out that. And this can come through the participatory development. We need to involve each section of the society of the people, so that when they get along, so their representation comes. So there is another advantage of that. Bias removal is also there when we represent when we take the representation from all sections of the society. So multilinguality is definitely a tool which can bridge this gap and which can take the all people along. So I definitely agree with you, but it has to be participatory development. As Nelson Mandela once said, if someone speaks to you in the language you understand, it goes to your heart. But if you speak in his language, it goes to his mind. If you speak in his language, it goes to his heart. So language is a great connect that we all agree, and it can come through the participatory development.
Thank you, Dr. Arora.
One more thing, whenever we make these type of systems, we do take care of these changes across, even the systems being done within the government. So the system is centralized, but then local requirements are built on this or customized as per their requirement. And language is going to be a big enabler now with Bhashni, Anuvadani, and BharatJan, and lot of models being made by startups. So I don't think language is going to be a big barrier. We have to create awareness, and Honorable Prime Minister is saying on skilling, reskilling, upskilling, that is the need of our, probably we have to look into this and then go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Thakur. I have 3 questions from IGNOU, but I would like to let the outsiders ask questions very quickly. The rest we can do it over dinner. So we have a question from the British Council.
Thank you. What really struck me was that you mentioned about small language models. So when you're talking about inclusion and when you're talking about localization, so I'm not sure, I'm not from a tech background. So I just want to understand that creating small language models and integrating it to large language models, will that particular methodology work in terms of inclusion?
Small language model in terms of performance, in terms of infrastructure requirements, in terms of your specific problems are much, much handy. When you struggle with a billion, trillion of parameters, these models can be done with the small parameters, and that is how we can less training data needed for it. And probably, as I was saying, it is, you can listen to our Honorable Ministers saying in Davos that 80 to 85% of the solutions can be using small language model. We need not to struggle with, but for languages where we have so much of diversity, definitely we require this. But for a small sector specific requirements, we are working out with those solutions, with those data sets. We are doing something with UPSC, something with Agriculture Ministry. So those data sets are being trained, and then those provide solutions. So they are SLM in that sense. So we can manage many things with small language models. Just to add to this point, while end results, small language models are the desirable. If you look at the history of what OpenAI did after DeepSeek was released, the DeepSeek models are much smaller, effective, but still they were still in the billions. So what DeepSeek did is they released a 20 billion GPT OSs, small, but their model was more effective than the DeepSeek models of the same size, in fact, larger size as well. And the reason these small models get effective is because they get distilled from the larger models. So I think it's also important for us to understand from a national ecosystem perspective that the small models and large models, exactly the analogy I was giving of a national highway with a state highway. We need to build an ecosystem in the country to be able to do large as well as small, because the small can benefit from the large significantly. And it's not just GPT-OSs. There have been many other small models which are spun off from larger models. In fact, small models can be very good stepping stones to build large models. The learnings are absolute. I mean, you don't build a large mixture of experts till you really figure out how many shared experts are required in the small model. And spot on. Architecture-wise, there's a lot of learning. But I was also talking about model effectiveness in terms of what we call model distillation, data distillation. These are distillation processes where you create sieves through the lens of the large model.
Thank you. 2 very quick questions, one from UP Rajshri Tandon Open University and one from DU.
Myself, Professor Ajendra Kumar Malli, COE, Director COE, UPRTU. My question is very basic. We use AI, taught AI, and to reach every student, but important issue is the facility. like internet facility, infrastructure. So that is very big problem. It is not easy to put every student to reach every student for AI education and use of AI. How to solve this issue? That is very important.
I'm going to give a very brief answer to this. We have just seen the tip of the iceberg. If we really want inclusivity, we will need to understand the stack and not just become consumers. There's tremendous inefficiency in today's models. And there was a recent paper on transformers, the fact that transformers are injective. Right? The injectivity is basically what you see in the tokens is preserved in the intermediate layers. I'm sorry. But the injectivity is at the cost of a lot of redundancy. Now, can we bring reasoning? Can we, Sridhar Vembu at a STIC conference, I invited him to speak and he made a very interesting point, right? All of us have some understanding of linear algebra and we always talk about basis, right? We want to find the minimal basis, right? So what is the basis that will help these models learn effectively? So first of all, these models are unreasonably large. Even the small models are large. That's the reason there's need for understanding them as glass boxes and not black boxes, which is where I began. And what to speak of inference and what you're talking about if you can do CPU inference, edge inference. By the way, it's not just related to models. If you look at all the amazing innovations that have come out from China, it's by people, architecture people collaborating with algorithms people. You need to understand and spend time, right? Beyond just using ChatGPT and OpenAI. So that's a general call to India. Like we need to become producers of technology because this is our opportunity. It's an opportunity to lose, but it's also an opportunity to make a big difference for us and for Global South, and I would say for the entire world.
So you were asking question about how to probably penetrate and saturate, and probably that is going to take time, as internet has taken almost 20 years to come and then reach majority of population. Similarly, smartphone has taken probably 6 to 7 years. So this is going to take some time, but definitely infrastructure and all is not going to be any challenge now with India evolving as a big player, third, fourth economy and going to be third. So I think with time, the things will be there and we are much, much more capable in terms of smartphone facilities being created by IITs, NIITs, centralized system being created. I think within 2 to 3 years, everyone will be at same level and divide will also be very, very less.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair, and all the panelists once again for a meaningful and impactful discussion addressing equity and access in open, distance, and digital education. Now I request Professor Uma Kanjilal, Vice Chancellor IGNOU, to kindly join us on the stage and felicitate the dignitaries. Thank you so much. Ma'am, I request you to kindly felicitate Professor Ganesh Ramakrishnan. Thank you so much, ma'am. I request you to kindly felicitate Professor Shyama Rath. Ma'am, kindly felicitate Dr. Vinay Thakur, please. May I request you to kindly felicitate Dr. Karunesh Arora. Thank you, ma'am. A special thanks to Mr. Mayank Dhingra, who has joined us virtually. Thank you so much. On behalf of Mr. Mayank, if any representative from HP is here. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Professor Nayantara Padi, Director, Special Project Unit, IGNOU, is requested to deliver the concluding remarks.
Honorable Vice Chancellor, distinguished keynote speakers and panelists from premier universities, industry, and government bodies, guests from industries, academic institutions, ministries, government bodies, international organizations, colleagues from academia in India and abroad, members of IGNOU fraternity, guests from media, and all participants joined us in person and virtually. Good evening to all of you. As we come to close this pre-summit event on AI-enabled future-ready ODDE, it is both a privilege and a responsibility for me on behalf of IGNOU to offer a few concluding reflections. Over the last few hours, we have collectively explored not just how artificial intelligence can be used in education, but how it can fundamentally reshape the architecture of open distance and digital education to serve millions of learners with greater equality, quality, and efficiency. This has been a genuine industry, academia, government dialogue, and the richness of the perspectives shared today is itself one of the most valuable outcomes of this conclave. Our first session highlighted how AI can drive innovation, efficiency, and scalability in ODDE systems. We heard compelling insights on scale of AI architectures, intelligent content creations, curation, assessment, and data-driven institutional decision-making. The message was clear. For a system like IGNOU, which has already enrolled over 2 crore learners over 40 years and serves 3.9 million active learners through a vast and diverse network. AI is not a luxury for us, but it is an imperative to sustain and enhance quality at a scale while keeping education affordable and accessible. The second session shifted our lens from technology to people, from capability to responsibility. The discussions on resilience, inclusivity reminded us that AI, if not designed thoughtfully and ethically, can deepen divides rather than bridge them. Today's dialogue emphasized multilingual, culturally responsive systems, support for learners with disabilities, offline and low bandwidth solutions for rural and remote areas. These conversations resonate deeply with IGNOU's founding mandate for access, equity, quality, and affordability, and with the broader vision of NEP 2020. Across both sessions, a few common threads that has emerged. First, AI in ODDE must be learner-centric. Second, AI must augment educators, not replace them. Third, partnerships are non-negotiable. So the event is not an isolated conversation. It is intentionally designed as a pre-summit contribution to the forthcoming AI Impact Summit to 2026, which focuses on impact of AI on people, planet, and progress. Our emphasis today on inclusive AI-enabled ODDE directly complements that larger national and global discourse. As we conclude, let us remind ourselves of the ethos that guides both IGNOU and the AI Impact Summit. Sarvajana Hitaya Sarvajana Sukhaya. Welfare for all, happiness for all. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you, Madam. I request Dr. Chitresh Soni, Assistant Professor, School of Translation Studies and Tourism, IGNOU, to propose the formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Vijay. Okay, so now comes the concluding and the tough task, whom to thank and whom to not. So first of all, I would like to thank our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, under whose dynamic leadership the AI Impact Summit is going to be held in India from 16 to 20th February 2026. Then I would like to thank Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, under whose branding and under whose generous funding we were able to conduct this event. Then the Ministry of Education, and then I would like to thank Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor Uma Kanjilal ma'am, without whose support this event was not possible. Madam, your support at every step of this event was very crucial, and your constant motivation keeps us going anytime, and how difficult the situation is, we are always moving ahead in your guidance. And then after thanking Professor Uma Kanjilal, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, I would like to thank Professor Ganesan Kannivaran, Director of NAC. Then I would like to thank our first keynote speaker, Professor Partha Pratim Chakravarti, 2 times Director of IIT Kharagpur. Then I would like to thank Mr. Peter Kakasi, Head of Solution Consulting, Asia Pacific, Europe, Middle East and Africa, Gemini and Google for Education. Then I would like to thank Dr. Mani Madhukar, although he was not present here, but through his generous sponsorship, we were able to conduct this event in a beautiful manner. Then I would like to thank Mr. Mayank Dhingra, who was us in virtual manner. And also, I would like to thank his company, HP Inc., for his generous funding and sponsorship. Then I would like to thank Mr. Vikram Malhotra from Microsoft India. We had Ms. Smriti Mulye from TCS Ion. And I would also like to thank Professor Anirban Chakravarti from JNU, Dr. Vinay Thakur from Bizagen, Dr. Karunesh Arora, Professor Linda Cooper from University of London, Professor Shama Rath from AICTE, and these 3 sponsors, Google for Education, Hewlett Packard, and IBM Innovation Center for Education. These 3 are our sponsors, including Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. Then I would like to thank our guests from the all state open universities and British Council, the Confederation of Indian Industries, the media persons who covered this event. And then I would like to thank our Administration Division, Finance Division, Center for Online Education, the EMPC, who made the live telecast of this event possible, the Special Project Unit, faculty, academics, and administrative staff of the university, along with all the directors of schools and heads of divisions. And lastly, the ITC and its staff for giving us the venue and supporting us with this thing. And lastly, while I conclude my vote of thanks, I would like to request all of you to join us for the networking dinner after this program. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone. This marks the formal conclusion of the program. Kindly join us for dinner.
Okay, I would also like to thank Professor Vijita Banwari, the compare of this program.